Welcome to another deadline stream ahead of Double Gameweek 22. We did a deadline, well, no, a reaction stream 2 days ago. We're going to do another reaction stream in around 2 days as well. But I'm going to go through all your questions and comments that you will post here in the live chat. So be sure to join the discussion. And it's good to see so many of you here already. And I've already made my transfers. And it was what I said in the team selection video. Odegaard and Bruno Fernandes coming in. And putting the triple captaincy on Marcus Rashford. I could still cancel it and maybe save it for next week in Gameweek 23. But in all likelihood, I think this is how I'm going to line up. The only change that has been made since the team selection video is Ben White in for Sven Botman, and primarily that's because of Bruno Guimaraes being suspended after his red card in the Carabao Cup semi-final, the second leg. So I think I will go for Ben White over Botman, but that could change. Everything else, though, should remain the same, which includes Kepa over Ward, and that's something I haven't deviated from all week. But let's go straight into your questions. Later on, I'll show you some different screens, talk about some different news. Of course, those of you that have Rodrigo, for example, you'll have to probably get rid of him. He's out for the next 2 months, and you might have some other fires to put out or other transfers you want to make. But with so many good midfielder options over the next 2 weeks, I would probably make that a focus, especially with him being out for such a long time. But it's good to see some of you. Let's get into your questions straight away. I'll try to whiz through these. Yep, triple captain, here we go. Let's see how it all pans out. I think Bruno Fernandes is another really good option, but apart from those two this week, I probably wouldn't go for anyone else in regards to the triple captaincy, not even Luke Shaw. You probably have the likes of Haaland next week and Odegaard, but I'm really confident of Rashford and Bruno Fernandes in Gameweek 22. Welcome, Ziofan. Good to see you. Manish says, got Saka and Odegaard for Martinelli and Almiron. I do like that. Although, as I said in the last stream, I would be a bit careful with Martinelli. I think he could do really well against Everton. And a few of the oppositions that Arsenal will come up against in the next few weeks, a lot of the chances they concede are on Martinelli's flank. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. But Saka and Odegaard in the long term, I think, are better options and more nailed than Martinelli. Yeah, triple captain gang. I think there's going to be a lot of us going with the triple captaincy. I also might show you the polls that I put out over the last day, and that includes the triple captaincy, the Gameweek 22 captaincy, and a few other questions like White versus Botman, some really popular questions. And if you have any other questions you want to pose and that you want answered by the community, then be sure to put it in the live chat, and ideas for polls will definitely be welcomed, and I'll try to put it on screen so you can then use it for your decisions as well. Going to wildcard after this week, that's fair enough. I'm looking to save it myself for later in the season, but I can understand why some of you may want to use it quite early on, and I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's all team dependent, and you will know your squad better than I do. Welcome, Ziofan, once again. Thank you. Is it worth switching from Gabriel and Andreas to Stupinian and Maddison for a -4, says Happy? Good question. I would say no. I don't think it's worth doing that because Gabriel has a double game week in 23. He also has some good long-term fixtures. He doesn't blank in 25, whereas you're getting a Stupinian who blanks in 25, and I think he's a really good option long-term, but with also a possible blank in 28, I probably wouldn't do that -4 hit. And Maddison's just coming back from an injury, so there's still so many question marks around him, and Leicester have been woeful since the World Cup, so I wouldn't do that personally. Triple Captain Rashford then says, Singh, also, how does the lack of Conte impact your thinking on CS? It's a really good question, something we haven't discussed. So in regards to the Rashford triple captaincy, that's what I'm probably going to do in the end. Of course, I can cancel it, but I don't see any real reason to do that right now. As for Conte, I think that could have a massive impact. He's very animated on the touchline, but Spurs can still get a result against City. Having said that, my confidence in Spurs helping Arsenal out in Gameweek 22 has definitely gone down with the news on Conte. Hopefully he gets well soon. Of course, he's having surgery, so he will probably miss the next few games. He's not going to be on the touchline, and it's all down to his coaching staff to set up the games and see how they do from the touchline. Welcome, Sidindra. I'm doing well. What about you? Thank you very much for asking. Elliot says, hey Dylan, Cancelo to Zinchenko, White, Ake, Gabriel, and Zaha to Odegaard, Saka. Yep, looks fine to me. Who would I go for right now? It probably would be Zinchenko, and I would also go for Odegaard. That's why I went for, in the end, I went for Odegaard over Saka. I don't think there's much to separate them. Saka's on penalties, but I think the bonus points is what swayed me towards Odegaard. Ideally, I would have both. In regards to the defender, I think all of them are really close. I don't think there's much to separate all of them. I think there could be some problems with Man City defenders in the future with the Champions League fast approaching, so there could be more rotation there. So it really goes down to the Arsenal defenders, and I don't know, Zinchenko seems like the best asset right now for bonus points and also minutes played. I think he's going to be quite nailed on. He is fairly injury prone though, even at his time during Man City, so I would be a bit careful with that. You could go for any single one of those options though and you'll be fine. Sindra says, got one free transfer, worth selling Kane and Andreas or KDB and Mitrovic to Fernandes and Nketiah for a -4, or just KDB to Fernandes for free? Good question. I do like Nketiah a lot. I discussed him last week as well and in the weeks gone by, but I would rather just do KDB to Fernandes for free, I think, and I definitely wouldn't sell Kane for a hit. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, Edmers, I just found it on YouTube, to be fair. I don't know exactly where the origin is. I think it's like Miami or something, or Vice, something like that. I need to double check that. Start James over Mitrovic. I would favour Fulham offensively, then Chelsea defensively, if you catch my drift. And I'm not so sure if James will get 60+ minutes. I think he could start, but he might come off just before the 60th minute mark. So I'm a bit unsure about that. I probably would go for Mitrovic, but if you feel differently, back your gut for sure. Sack in for Martinelli or Odegaard? Oh, definitely for Martinelli for me. Despite what I said about, the opposition maybe favouring Martinelli over the next few weeks, based on the season stats, I would still rather have Odegaard and Saka long term. So if you were making that move, I'd definitely keep Odegaard and sell Martinelli. Welcome, Harry. I haven't really paid attention to FPL lately. Could you explain who is blanking soon? No problems. We did make a video on this, but to kind of briefly recap it. So in Game Week 25, we have 4 teams blanking, so 2 games aren't going to go ahead. Man United and Newcastle, they're going to be playing in the Carabao Cup final in Game Week 25, so they're going to be blanking in that game week. The same goes for the opposition, Brighton and Brentford, and that's why I've discussed the likes of Tony, Brighton, assets like Matoma, and also Stupinian earlier as an example. So those teams will be blanking. In Game Week 28 and 32, those are going to be 2 other blank game weeks. That all depends on the FA Cup, who reaches the quarterfinals and the semi-finals. So I discussed all of that there, and you can see which games are definitely going ahead, such as Arsenal, I think, against Crystal Palace in 28, but there's still some things left to be resolved, and that all depends on the FA Cup. But Game Week 25, there's 4 teams blanking, and that's primarily due to the Carabao Cup final. Also, free hit for Game Week 25 with a big blank. I don't mind it too much. It depends on your situation, but ideally I'd save it for later in the season for a double or blank. And the reason why is because only 4 teams are blanking in 25, and I think it's doable. You can get to 9 or 10 players quite easily, I think, for most people. Even in my situation, I've got double Newcastle, triple United, and Ivan Toney. Yeah, I could still get to a 10 or 11-man squad in 25 with 3 transfers remaining until then. So I would try to save it if you can. And I think Game Week 28, 32 are bigger blanks, of course. And you've also got the doubles in 29, 34 and 37, which are going to be major, and the free hit there could be aggressive and also pay off. What are your almost must-haves for blank Game Week 25? Good question. I think 2 or 3 City players for sure against Bournemouth, so Mahrez or De Bruyne, it's up to you, Erling Haaland and maybe a Man City defender. Or if you really want to go all eggs in one basket, go for triple up in Man City attack. My preference is to go for 1 City defender and 2 attackers, and the others would be Arsenal assets, I think, 1 or 2 for sure, and I would go for Odegaard, Saka, maybe an Arsenal defender, or Nketiah. Just depends which Arsenal assets you really want to have, but definitely Arsenal and Man City assets, I think, are the best option. So those would be my kind of top 4 or 5. You have the likes of Harry Kane, who I really like, but he faces Chelsea, and that could be quite a tough game, and it could be very cagey. Good to see you once again, John. Thank you very much for tuning in. And take a -4 for Tony to Nketiah. No, I wouldn't do that this week. If anything, do it for free in Game Week 23. Time to use Triple Captain either now in 22 or in Game Week 23 on Haaland. The reason why I say that is because in the big blanks, the big double, should I say, in 29, 34 and 37, you might want to use another chip like the second wildcard, the free hit or the bench boost. So as a result, I probably would use the Triple Captaincy now so it doesn't clash with your other chips. And to be fair, you might want to use a free hit or something in a blank gimmick like 28 or 32, but I think 22 is as good a time as ever to play the Triple Captaincy. Man United could have another double later in the season, but there's no guarantee the fixtures will be as good as what you see here in Crystal Palace and Leeds at home. And not only that, you also could have more rotation by then if United are still in the FA Cup and also in the Europa League. So I'd probably use it now, and if not, in Gimmick 23. Thank you, Harry. I appreciate it. Obviously, that's kind of a general quick synopsis that I did in that video. And there's a lot of, uncertainties and variables. But in essence, Game Week 25 is the blank game week that we know about. And we know those 4 teams are blanking. But a few other things could happen, like Brighton doubling in 26 or 27. They could also blank in 28. The same goes for Manchester United. So there's a lot that could change from now until then. Will Mahrez play regularly now? I can't tell you that for sure. I think he, considering his current form, he's definitely one of the most nailed on players at the moment, but that doesn't mean that will be the case in a month's time or in a few weeks' time. Things can just so easily change with Pep Guardiola. Just look at Cancelo, for example. But I think he will start in the next 3 games in the Premier League. Let's see if that actually comes to fruition. And then you've got the Champions League, also in the mix. That could definitely spice things up. So at the moment, I think, yes, he's going to be quite nailed on, but not as much as a De Bruyne, Edison, or Erling Haaland. White or Botman to start? Already have Trippier. I'm currently leaning towards White. I'm not that confident of a clean sheet for either Arsenal or Newcastle now. I think the Bruno Guimaraes suspension, could be a big blow for Newcastle there. And I looked at recent games between West Ham and Newcastle, and I know the teams are different going into this season, but typically West Ham score quite a few goals at St James's Park, and I could see a 1-1 or 2-1, for example. I am backing Newcastle to win, but I think West Ham could get a goal, especially with Bowen now showing some form once again. Should I take a -4 for Almiron to Mahrez or keep Almiron? I would keep Almiron this week and do the switch next week for free. That's what I would do. Welcome, Ahmed. So force on my team: Kepa, Dunk, Shaw, Trippier, Odegaard, Bruno, Rashford, Matoma, Kane, Haaland, and Nketiah. Honestly, that team looks really good for Game Week 22. What you really need to take into account is how you prepare for Game Week 23 and 25, but you've already got plenty of Arsenal and Man City assets. So you've got Odegaard. I'm guessing, yeah, you've got Nketiah as well. If you don't have a third Arsenal player, then I would consider a defender or go for that second midfielder. And since you already have Odegaard, I would heavily consider Saka. But for Game Week 22, your team is looking really good. And the triple captaincy, I like, of course. I'm doing the same thing right now. Welcome, Irish BVB. Good to see you. Thinking Kane plus Martinelli to Bruno and Nketiah, roll in 23, and Bruno, Mitrovic out for Kane and someone in 24. Yeah, it does sound good. I have no problems with that whatsoever. It's all free as well, after all. The thing is, I think Kane could score a similar amount to Nketiah this week, but honestly, when you look at the fixtures on paper, it does make sense, and I'd probably go for something like that. Also, bear in mind that Mitrovic has a good fixture in 24, so if you do get rid of him, or is it in Game Week 23 actually, I think you've planned it right, just about right. I would do that actually, BVB. I think that's all good. Dylan, I triple captain Rashford, and will Cucurella start? I'm not so sure if Cucurella will start. My gut feeling is he will. Chilwell is going to be in the squad. The same goes for James and Sterling, but that doesn't mean they're going to start and get the 90, of course. So my prediction is yes, he will start, but either way, not that confident of a Chelsea clean sheet. And in terms of triple captain Rashford, I think it's a really good opportunity. And should I take a hit to bring in Nketiah? Depends who you bring him in for, but would I get rid of Kane for Nketiah for a hit? No, I definitely wouldn't. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you very much. Good to see you as always, Jay. I appreciate you also giving a shout out. Triple captain Rashford, yes, I would recommend it, but you don't have to. You could also triple captain Odegaard, Haaland, Mahrez, or De Bruyne in 23. But for me, the best opportunities we have in the immediate short term is Rashford or Bruno in 22 or Haaland in 23. That's what I would kind of limit it down to. You could, of course, use it in a major double game week later in the season, but then you also run the risk of a clash with another chip that you may want to use in double game at 29, 34, or 37. KDB and Mitrovic for Fernandes and Nketiah, says Prabhat. Yep, I think I would do that. Despite KDB and Mitrovic looking really good over the next 3 or 4 in general, I think Fernandes and Nketiah, they're worthwhile moves, and I think they could outscore KDB and Mitrovic in Game Week 22. And of course, you can bring KDB back in ahead of double Game Week 23. Nketiah or Mitoma? This week, Mitoma. But who would I rather have over the next 4 or 5? Then I would go for Nketiah. I think he will still remain as the main striker. Even if Jesus comes back into the squad, I don't think he'll start games anytime soon. So long-term Nketiah for this week, definitely Mitoma. Darwin to Nketiah. Yeah, I think that's a really good move. I'd go ahead with it. I wouldn't really, I wouldn't have too many doubts about that. I would go for Reece James once he's fit and we see him getting some match rhythm and consistent minutes. But the big problem with James, he's injury prone and he is a bit of an FPL troll as well. But he also has the highest potential of all 3. I think the safest pick would be Thiago Silva. Should I sell Martinelli and get Odegaard or Saka? I would hold Martinelli this week, unless you have a spare free transfer. You're well stacked for Game Week 22, 23, and 25, and you're going to burn a transfer if you don't, make a transfer or a move. So in that case, I would get rid of Martinelli, but otherwise, in most cases, I'm guessing this applies to you as well, I'd keep him, and maybe next week you can get Odegaard or Saka to couple alongside Martinelli. Rodrigo replacement under 6 million, not from teams blanking in Game Week 25. Oh, then definitely an Arsenal Man City midfielder. So I'd go for either Odegaard, Saka, or Mahrez. Take a pick there. My preference would probably be Odegaard, Mahrez, then Saka. I think it's really close between the three, and it could go either way. But the reason why I go for Mahrez just above Saka is because you can also, it leaves you that Arsenal slot potentially to go for an Nketiah up front as well. And I do think Odegaard's slightly better than Saka because of bonus points. For a -4, I think it is worth it still. You know, with the Everton fixture, then you've got a double game week. Also, no blanket 25. So, yeah, I think it's worth a -4. You don't have to play it, though. So, if you've got someone like White or Botman ready to come in, then maybe avoid the hit for now and make the transfer next week. But it is a good hit. Play Dallo over Kanji and Bueno. That's the thing with Dallo, though. I'm not so sure if he will even get a start, let alone two. But yes, I think I would risk it. The big problem with that is that he could come on for a 1 pointer across the 2 games. It's definitely possible, but if he does get 1 start, I would definitely back him over Bueno and Akanji, so I can see why you're asking that. Let's see what else we have. Martial, De Bruyne, Martinelli, Nketiah, Reed, Bruno -4. I probably wouldn't do it. I really like Bruno, and Nketiah is a good transfer as well in the long term, but you're also getting in Reed, and you're getting rid of 3 really good players, or at least 2 really good players in Martinelli and De Bruyne. Martial obviously came on and scored the other day, and, you know, there could be 1 start from in the double game week. So is that all worth a -4 hit on reflection? I'm not so sure, actually. You know, they're good transfers you're making in, especially Nketiah and Bruno, but I'm a bit apprehensive about that. Mahrez, Almiron to Martinelli, Odegaard, who to choose? I would not get rid of Mahrez. It makes no sense to get rid of Mahrez for me. I'd get rid of Almiron and I would go to Odegaard. Play double Newcastle, play White. I'm going for White right now. I was originally on Botman, but I think the Bruno Guimaraes suspension has edged me towards going for White. It's really close though. I'm not that convinced of a clean sheet for either Arsenal or Newcastle in Game Week 22. When to use wildcard or free hit? Wildcard, I mean, look, it's all team dependent, of course, but a wildcard I would use around game week 28 to 33. And the free hit, you could use it in a blank game week like 28 or 32, or in a big double game week like 29, 34, or 37. So those are the kind of weeks that I'd be looking to use the free hit. And the wildcard is kind of a period. So depending on how you're set up for a certain game week and what your plans are with other chips, but I'd say between game week 28 to 33 would be a good time to use it. Yeah, triple captain, I think that looks fine. I'm going to do it with Rashford. Let's see how it goes. Thank you, Alejandro. Good to see you. Bench boost for Kepa, Almiron, Botman, and me. It's not a bad bench, to be fair. I can see why you're looking to use it. The bench boost is overrated. I've always said this, so why not? That's the way I look at it. But just to let you know, there are going to be major double game weeks, especially in 29 and 34, and you could have an even better bench with double game week players, as an example. So, you know, if you want to hold out until then maybe do that. But it's not a bad bench. I think that could get you 15 points, which would be a decent bench boost score. Thank you, John, as always, and everyone else that's shouting out the video. Was set on Martial says Marco to Martial, Kulusevski to Nonto and Bruno, but Martial return makes me rethink. I can understand that, to be fair, and I'm not a huge fan of Nonto in FPL. I think he's a really good talent, but at the same time, I wouldn't really back Leeds assets in Game Week 22. Having said that, if that's your only way to fund Kulusevski to Bruno, Marco, I would do it. I would still downgrade Martial to Nonto. Go ahead with it, or Kulusevski to Odegaard and roll. That is also a good question. I mean, what I would recommend is getting Bruno in for this week and then getting Odegaard for next week. And you can still keep Bruno, by the way, but get rid of another midfielder instead. So I can see what you mean. I think I'd still go ahead with it and get Bruno in and get Nonto. And then next we get Odegaard in for someone else, basically. Start White or Kane? I'd definitely go for Kane out of those two. Start Almiron or Ake? I would go for Almiron. Mitoma or Mahrez or Almiron? Mitoma this week, definitely. I have Mitrovic and Kane. Should I sell one of them for Weghorst? No, definitely not. Honestly, in the long term, I think Mitrovic is a better option. And Harry Kane, I mean, he's arguably the second best option in the game, or third, behind the likes of Trippier and Haaland. So, no, I wouldn't do that, to be honest. And also with United assets, you've got De Gea in goal, Lisandro Martinez, not to mention the best free options they have in Bruno, Shaw and Rashford. Those are the options I'd rather go to from Man United. Odegaard or Saka? I've gone for Odegaard, and I think the main reason why is the bonus points potential. And also underlying numbers, Odegaard has been better over the course of the season. Not by much, but he has been better. Since Leeds have a double game week, should I start Greenwood or bench him? Good question. I'd still bench him, I think. Unless you have someone like Andreas starting or Mitrovic, I think I would probably bench him anyway. The likes of White, Botman, I'd rather go for. Even Dallo, as another example. Should I start James? Depends who you start him over. My guess is not to start him because you might have a White or Botman or someone else like that. Almiron to Odegaard or Martinelli? I'd go to Odegaard. You know, one kind of big plus with Martinelli is he just signed a new contract with Arsenal. He could be really well motivated. And like I said, the opposition coming up, like Everton, have conceded a lot of chances on their left flank, which is where Martinelli operates. So as a result, I think Martinelli could actually be a good hold. But would I go for him over a Saka or Odegaard if I didn't have? No, I probably wouldn't. Martinelli to Odegaard or roll the transfer? I would roll the transfer. What I like about Odegaard, and it's something I haven't mentioned yet, is that his record against Everton is really good. He scored in both games last season against them. He scored at Goodison Park to give Arsenal the lead, and he also scored in a 5-1 victory at the Emirates. So he does like playing against them. But yeah, I would probably hold Martinelli for now and then add Odegaard to your ranks next week. Start Akanji or White? I'd go for Ben White. I think Arsenal have a better chance than City to keep a clean sheet in Game Week 22. Bench 1, Kane, March, Odegaard. I'd bench March, actually, despite the fixture. Start 2 out of March, Martinelli and Mahrez. I'd probably go for March and Martinelli to start and bench Mahrez, but that does seem crazy with the form that Riyad Mahrez is in. He's a really good player. By the way, just let me get this link up because I'm seeing questions about the Chrome extension that I'm using for the away kit. So I'm going to put a link now in the chat. So be sure to check it out. I think Rami's one of the people asking. So click the link that I just added and you can add it to your browser. If you're using Google Chrome or Brave, then you can add it to your browser and you can have the away kits. Wan-Bissaka or Bruno? Definitely Bruno Fernandes. And long term, he's going to be more nailed on. Play Mahrez or Tony? I'd play Tony this week. Any update on Jesus' injury? There's not really an update. So I'll have to keep saying that Jesus wants to be back as soon as possible, but they're going to be cautious with him because it was a serious injury. There was a picture of Jesus on the pitch. I'm not so sure if it's exactly true, but if he is on the pitch, that doesn't mean he's going to be back in a few weeks or something. It could still be a month. He is projected to return at the end of February or the beginning of March, and that doesn't mean he's going to start games again. That just means he's going to return to the squad, so bear that in mind. In terms of him starting games again for Arsenal, I would say around March, probably mid-March, but in terms of coming back into the squad, within a month, I'd say. Bench 1, Tony, Kane, Mahrez. Like I said, I'd bench Mahrez from those 3. Yeah. Should I take a hit to bring in Odegaard for Almiron? I don't think that's a bad hit. I think it pays off in the end, but you could always afford to keep Almiron against West Ham and then make the switch next week. It really depends on if you think Odegaard can haul against Everton. I think he can, so as a result, I think it's a worthwhile hit, but you might feel differently. Honest answer, I would say long term it's worth it, so I'd take the hit, but it's not necessary. Ward, Edison on the bench. I'd rather bench Ward and still start Edison. I think Aston Villa will score against Leicester. To be fair, I think Spurs will also score against City, but Man City's defence is far better than Leicester's, so that's the way I kind of just think about it. Welcome, Invixity. I'm really stuck here. I have Raya, Ake, Burn, Trippier, Odegaard, Bruno, Rashford, Matoma, Saka, Kane, Haaland, and on the bench, De Gea, Lewis, Dunk, Nonto, and Saliba. Should I bench boost or triple captain someone? Honestly, look, if it was me, I wouldn't bench boost. Like, it's a really good bench you have there, but ideally I would start De Gea over Raya anyway. I would also start the likes of Dunk potentially over Ake as another example. So when I look at it that way, I mean, it's a good bench and you can easily get a 10 or 15 pointer from the likes of Raya, Ake. I'm trying to think of who else would be classed as the weakest in your team, so to speak. Maybe Burn, although you would need 3 defenders anyway. So if you... The way I look at it, your bench, it doesn't have your weakest players for Game Week 22. If you do put your weakest players in 22, and that's the way the kind of bench boost would work, so to speak, you know, I still think you can get 15 points. So yes, a bench boost is worth it, but I would rather go for the triple captaincy on Rashford or Bruno Fernandes. That's just my opinion, and I think you can gain even more points from a bench boost in a double game week later in the season, like 29 or 34. So I would personally go for a triple captain, but your bench boost would also work pretty well. Is it time to sell Almiron? He's got some great fixtures coming up over the next 2. I think he's going to score 1 goal. I'm tripping on my own words there. So yeah, I think he can score 1 goal over the next 2. But when you also compare him to Bruno Fernandes in 22, Rashford, not to mention the likes of Saka, Odegaard, even Martinelli, Riyad Mahrez, I think there are so many midfielders to go to that I think it is worth selling him. But if you do keep him for the next 2, I don't mind that at all. Yeah, Ben White is fit to play. He came off at half-time against Man United because he was on a yellow card and struggling against Rashford, really. Thank you, Jared. I'm doing well. What about you? Bench White or Shaw? I mean, don't bench don't bench Shaw. He's got a double game week, so it has to be Ben White there. Hi, Dylan. Keep or sell Almiron? If I had to say keep or sell, I'd say sell. But like I said, there is merit to keeping him because he's got some really good fixtures coming up. I see him scoring 1 over the next 2, especially in that Bournemouth game. Odegaard, Mitoma, Mahrez, who to bench? This week it'd be Mahrez. Bench 1, Kane, Mitoma. Probably Harry Kane, but honestly, benching Harry Kane is something I could never do. Giving Rashford triple captaincy this game week a good idea? Well, I would definitely not say no, because I've got triple captaincy on him right now, so I think it is a good idea, and I would argue he's one of the best triple captaincy options we've had all year, so yes, it is. Andreas, Trossard or Cucurella to start? That's a good question. I'm not so sure if Trossard starts. Despite my concerns about Martinelli, I still think Martinelli will start in Game Week 22. So I think Cucurella is probably the safest option there for you. Him or Andreas, it just depends how you really back that game to go. I would rather, like I said, I back Fulham offensively more than Chelsea defensively. So that's why if you look at my bench, I've actually got Andreas over Cucurella. So it's completely up to you there. But I think Cucurella is the safest option, so to speak. Hi, Dylan. Benching Almiron for Cucurella worth it? I would rather start Almiron, personally. I do have Haaland. It's probably what has caught you out is the away kits. He's in a kind of like red and black kit. That's why. He is in my team. If I didn't have him, then I'm just asking for trouble, even against Spurs. Raya or Kepa? This week, I'd rather go for Kepa. Not really backing either team to keep a clean sheet. Start Darwin or Almiron? I'd go for Almiron. It's not a bad idea to start Darwin, but I'd rather go there. Thank you, Ziofan. I appreciate it. Salah to Bruno for a hit? Yes, I think it's worth it. Bench Kane or Martinelli? I'd rather bench Martinelli from those two. Would you hold Mitrovic? Yes, unless you're moving to Kane, Nketiah, or Erling Haaland, which I'm guessing you're not anyway. But yeah, if you're not going for one of those 3 forwards, I would hold Mitrovic until Game Week 26. That's when you could sell him. Who to start? Almiron, Botman, or Saliba? Good question. I probably would go for Saliba. Really close call, though. I would go for one of the defenders there, I think. Ake, Thiago Silva, Almiron, 2 to start. Almiron and Thiago Silva. Yeah, I was planning Bruno and Nonto in and Nketiah Game Week 23, or skip Bruno, roll, plus get Odegaard in 22, then Mahrez in 23. All of those options seem pretty good to me, to be fair. And like I said earlier, I'm not a huge fan of Nonto, but if you're already planning to get Nketiah for him anyway in 23, that looks fine. Just bear in mind, around Game Week 27 or 28, Jesus could then take some minutes and starts off Nketiah again. Bench 1 from White, Cucurella or Mitrovic. I would actually bench Cucurella from those 3. Should I get Bruno Fernandes in for KDB and sack him for Almiron, and I will still have 0.1 million in the bank? What's your opinion? Yeah, that looks really good to me. Yeah, I'd go for it. Also bear in mind that Odegaard could be as good, if not better, than Saka, but those transfers look fantastic in my opinion. Welcome, Michael. Good to see you. Only just joined now. Not sure if you talked about it, but Tony to Nketiah for a -4? No. When I look at the fixtures, I would argue that Tony will outscore Nketiah, or at least score a similar amount. I don't think it's worth a -4 here. I would make that move in 23, though. Start Mitrovic or Dunk? I'd start Dunk. I think he's more likely to return. Mitrovic has the highest ceiling, but Dunk is more likely to give you a 6-pointer. Anthony Gordon, Saint-Maximin or Harrison? From those options, it would be Harrison with a double game week. Anthony Gordon is not someone I would recommend. Not right now, anyway. Almiron to Mitoma and KDB to Bruno. Yep. Just bear in mind that Mitoma is going to blank in 25, just like Almiron. But if you're already well set up for that blank game week, go for it. KDB to Bruno looks really good as well. Marco says, thinking Martial may be a trap, and I'll keep him with the hope of Mins, and he'll do nothing or get injured. Yep. I've said this before. I'm not a big fan of Martial as an FPL asset. You know, whenever he does look promising, he gets injured. So I do agree with you. I would probably sell him, even if there is a risk. It really depends for certain situations. I think someone earlier said they would take a -4 hit to get rid of Martial, but the other moves weren't really filling me with confidence as well. So that's why I was kind of recommending him to not do it. But in most cases, I would sell Martial. Thank you, John, for being a member for 15 months, well over a year. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate you. So thank you for the kind words and also for remaining a member for so long. I appreciate you as always. De Bruyne and Mount to Bruno and Odegaard for free, says Light. Yes, definitely. I think there's no doubts about that move whatsoever. You can always bring De Bruyne back in for Bruno in 23 or even go for Mahrez. Almiron to Mahrez with a hit? No. Just get Mahrez in next week, in my opinion, unless you're absolutely convinced Mahrez will haul again against Spurs. Replace Stones with Ake, Perisic or Borja. I'd go for Ake. Double Gameweek in 23, great fixture in 25, and Man City have some good long-term fixtures as well. So does Pedro Porro and Perisic, to be fair. And I actually mentioned Porro quite a bit in the reaction stream. He could be a defender I'm looking at in 25, but right now, I'd go for Ake. Martial minutes mean I should look to move to Nketiah for a hit. What I would do in that situation is keep Martial for this week and then sell to Nketiah in 23. That's what I would do, but I wouldn't really blame you if you were to take the plunge this week. If it was for free, I probably would do it. Will you triple captain today? Yes, I think I will. Let's see what else we have. I think I'm a bit far behind. Just joined. Dylan, is Stones injured? Yes, he's out for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Pep Guardiola confirmed it himself. Yes, I'm using the triple captaincy this week, and I don't think I'll change my mind there. Start Mitrovic or Almiron in Game Week 22. I think I'd go for Almiron. Really close call, though. Would you go for any City defender next week? Potentially. I'm looking at the likes of Ake in particular. It would have been Stones. So, it sounds like I'm crying. It would have been Stones. I was really considering him, but with his injury, of course, and Ake being in form, I think that is the way I'm looking to go if I were to bring in a Man City defender. But let's actually switch to FPL.team for a little second. My current plan is to make one free transfer, get rid of Bruno in 23 for Riyad Mahrez, then roll the transfer in 24, and then heading into Game Week 25, I could then make 1 or 2 transfers and then bring in Ake for 25. Then again, I could also take a hit to get him in 23, but I'm not so sure if I will do that. But then I have to just admit to you, Ake is definitely someone I'm looking to get. Pedro Porro is another one on my radar. It doesn't mean I'm definitely going for him though. But yeah, those are kind of my rough outlines for the next few weeks in my transfer plans. I discussed this in my team selection video already. Any Man City assets nailed? You know with Pep, it's never that simple. The most nailed on players are Haaland and Ederson, probably closely followed by the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and at the moment Riyad Mahrez, but that could easily change in a few weeks' time. Yes, I put the triple captaincy on Rashford. Ake, Kanji or Matip? Definitely not Matip. Even if Liverpool have doubles very soon, which is likely, I would go for Ake. Akanji's fine as well, to be fair, but I'd go for Ake. Play Tony or Ake? I'd go for Tony this week. Would you take a -4 this week, says Alex, instead of next week for Mitrovic to Nketiah or Castagna to White for a -4? I'd rather do Mitrovic to Nketiah for a -4. I think that is worth it even this week, Alex. Thank you, Fabian. Great content as always. Best Zaha replacement. I don't have Odegaard. Yeah, I think you're on the right track there. I would look to the likes of Odegaard, Saka and Mahrez. I'm assuming you have Rashford and Bruno already, so one of those 3, and I would rank it Odegaard first, maybe Mahrez second, and Saka third. Really close between the 3, but I would go for Odegaard. Hey Dylan, do you reckon Porro is a good asset? It's very difficult to tell because I've only seen him in the Champions League, including the game against Spurs, where he was pretty good. You know, he's got some really good underlying numbers, but that is in the Portuguese league. A different kettle of fish. I think he could be the best Spurs defender in the game, even over Perisic, and I think he can suit that back 5 system really well under Conte. So yeah, he's definitely someone I'm looking at. Am I going to bring him in right now? No, but it's not a bad time to get him in, to be fair. And he has a fixture 25, albeit against Chelsea. He could be rejuvenated after the transfer window. But yes, I think he is going to be a good FPL asset. But let's wait and see. He might not be as offensive as he was at Sporting Lisbon. Would you go for KDB or Mahrez in 23? Right now, the plan is to go for Mahrez, but I am open-minded. You know, if De Bruyne plays really well against Spurs in 22, then I might go for him instead and get him back in. -4 hit, Saka for Almiron this week or... okay, I was checking, you know, kind of trauma. I was checking to see if there's any drop frames. I definitely don't want to see that happening again. -4 hit, Saka for Almiron this week or next week, -4 hit. Probably next week. I think Saka's only got 1 assist against Everton in his whole Premier League career. If I'm not mistaken, maybe 2 assists. I don't think he's ever scored against them. That doesn't mean he's not going to score against them now, of course, but I think it's worth holding Almiron this week and then do it next week, yeah. Nketiah or Nonto for Martial? Nketiah. What should I do with Martial? I currently have him and he's my 3rd United asset. Look, if you can get to Nketiah, Haaland or Harry Kane for free, I would do it. But otherwise, I'd probably hold him this week and then sell in 23. Definitely sell him. It's just a matter of when. You could do it now in 22 or in 23. Isak is out injured. Yes, he is a doubt. So Wilson nailed. Bench Wilson or KDB? Good question. I'd probably still bench Wilson and start KDB. Sell Almiron for Odegaard, Saka or Havertz for Nketiah? good question. Probably Almiron to Odegaard Saka, because at least Havertz plays in 25, and I would rather have Odegaard or Saka instead of Nketiah in the long term. Yep, Rashford triple captain. So if we go back to my FPL team, you can see it right here. Rashford is currently my triple captain. I think it's a really good choice. Mbuma to Nketiah for a hit. Yes, I would do it. Welcome, Nabil. Always a pleasure. Almiron and Martial to Odegaard, and Nketiah says Toure or Toure. I'll say Toure. I could also do KDB to Bruno for a -4. I probably would do it. Look, I would be a bit apprehensive about getting rid of Martial for Nketiah for a hit this week, just in case Martial gets at least the start with great fixtures coming up. But in the long term, I think the hit pays off. So yes, I would make those moves and also do KDB to Bruno for a hit. Yeah, I think I would. Who would you play among White, Martinelli and Estupiñán? I would start Estupiñán and Martinelli and bench White. Mitrovic or Ben White? I think I'd start Ben White. Mitro to Nketiah for a -4? Yes, because Nketiah has a double in 23, and he also has a better fixture in 25. Yeah, I think I would. Well, that's debatable, actually, the 25 one. Odegaard for Martinelli and Mitoma for Almiron for free. Should I do it? Yes. Just bear in mind, 25, Mitoma will be blanking just like Almiron, so if you are well prepared anyway, I'd go with it. But Martial stops me from getting Bruno, and I'm not sure I want to go without Bruno this week. Yeah, in that case, sell Martial, Aranya. I'd sell Martial and bring in Bruno Fernandes. Mitoma or March? Look, March is still a good option, and I was talking about him a lot in the transfer tips video and all of that, but Mitoma is definitely the one to go to right now. He's in incredible form. He's scoring with low XG shots. It doesn't really matter. You know, in terms of underlying numbers, he hasn't been particularly great, but stats aren't everything. Sometimes a player of that quality, you know, just surpasses that, and Mitoma is definitely it. So March is still good, but I would rather have Mitoma. Nketiah or Odegaard? Odegaard. Bench 1, Mitrovic, Ake, Saliba, Trippier, Martinelli. I would bench Ake from those lot, yeah. Done Bruno for Salah. Do I use a -4 this week for Nketiah to Mitrovic or wait for next week? I'll get Mahrez for Almiron next week. I would do a -4 next week or do the move next week and get Mahrez in for Almiron. But that looks really solid. Ask him. Would you play me or Gabriel? I'd play Gabriel. Should I start Botman, Almiron, Martinelli, Mount? I would rank it Martinelli first, Botman second, Almiron third, and Mount last. March, White, and Botman can only play 2. I would probably bench... That's a tough question. I think I'd bench Botman if I had to pick one. I think that fixture for March is too encouraging compared to the others. Almiron out for Mitoma or Salah out for Bruno. Choose one. Salah out for Bruno. Hey Dylan, will Conte be available? No, he's not going to be on the touchline. He just had a surgery. He's going to miss the next few games, actually. Would you bench De Bruyne and start Martinelli? I would perhaps start Martinelli over De Bruyne, yes. I'm never really that comfortable with benching premium options like De Bruyne, Harry Kane, Salah, and all of these options. But right now, I think it's worth it. Hi Dylan, Mahrez to Fernandes and Almiron to Odegaard for -4. Yep. I made the same moves, but for free. I think those are pretty solid. Why do you bench Cucurella? I'm not really backing Chelsea defensively. It looks like Enzo Fernandes could start tonight. And of course, the January transfer window was a huge boost for Chelsea. But having said that, I'm not a big fan of Chelsea defensively. I want to sell Cucurella. I might do so even before Gameweek 25. And if not, probably afterwards. I'm not really a big fan of him. And who would I start him over? You know, I'm not starting Cucurella over any of these options in my starting 11, to be quite frank. Even over Botman, who's on my bench as well. How long is Nketiah nailed for? So like I said, my prediction is Jesus will be back in the squad around March, you know, beginning of March. But in terms of him starting games again, I would say mid-March or late March. So game week 27, 28 we're talking about. So Nketiah should be nailed on for the next 5 game weeks or so, in my opinion. Start Mahrez or Martinelli? I'd start Martinelli. Bench 1, probably Martinelli. And based on that answer, you can probably gather that I do back Kane over KDB this week. What are your transfer plans? I've already made 2 transfers. I brought in Bruno Fernandes and Odegaard for Almiron and for Kevin De Bruyne. Even Ferguson to Nketiah or etc. 2.5 million in the bank. I would do it. I would get Nketiah in for Ferguson. Thank you, Ardish. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. Play Kepa or Raya. I would actually favour Kepa a little bit more. Almiron to Mahrez for a -4. I would do that next week. It doesn't matter if it's for a hit or not, but I wouldn't make that transfer this week specifically. Also, Darwin to Nketiah and Foden to Bruno, 2 free transfers. I think those look really good. I'd go for it. Also, triple captain this week. You can see on screen I'm triple captaining Rashford, so I think it's a really good idea. I think he's arguably the best triple captaincy option until the end of the season, at least based on our information that we have at our disposal right now. There's too many variables and uncertainties heading into the future and things that could change, so I think he's a really good choice. Bruno or KDB? Bruno. You can always bring KDB back in. You know, when you look at the next 4 or 5 game weeks in general, KDB has a double in 23, just like Bruno has now in 22. And he also has a fixture in 25, which Bruno doesn't. But for this week, definitely Bruno. Good to see you, Leanne, as always. And yes, some good climbing since game week 17, but let's wait and see if it continues. I'm hoping the triple captaincy on Rashford will play a part in that as well. Try not to spam because I don't want to put people on timeout. I'm going to answer this question, but like I said, try not to spam. Bench 1, Almiron or Martinelli? I would bench Almiron. Bench boost looks decent right now if you want a wild card later. Yeah, even a bench boost in 23 looks pretty good. And any kind of smaller double game week, but I'm also open to the idea of using it in a major one like 29 or 34. But because it's so overrated in my opinion, and it doesn't really gain you too many points most of the time, I'm not that fussed about when I'm going to play it in the end. Please help, bench Odegaard or Kevin De Bruyne? I'd probably bench De Bruyne, but it's definitely, yeah, it's not ideal. Is there a case to triple captain Shaw this week? I think so. United have a good chance of 1 or even 2 clean sheets. I could see Shaw getting bonus points if United were to keep a clean sheet in a narrow win. You know, Crystal Palace have given United some very difficult games over the past, even drew against them recently. But, you know, let's say United win 1 or 2-0 against Palace, you could easily see Shaw getting a 9-pointer. Cancelo to Laporte or Lewis and KDB to Bruno Fernandes for a -4. I would rather do Cancelo to Laporte, but honestly, Ake is the one you want to go to. He's the most nailed on Man City defender alongside Akanji, in my opinion. So I'd rather go for those two over Lewis and Laporte. And yeah, KDB to Bruno for a hit, I'd go for it. Start Botman or Almiron? I would prioritize Botman a little bit more, so probably him. Do you reckon Chilwell starts tonight? I actually had a dream that he scored like a finesse shot with his right foot. I'm not even sure why. No, I don't think he starts. I think he'll be eased back in. I think Cucurella will start. Is it safe to sell Mitrovic for Nketiah? Yeah, especially for free. I think Nketiah will outscore him over the next 3 or 4. Having said that, Mitro is a good option regardless. So if you keep him, I don't see that as a big issue. But who do I think scores more points? Nketiah, so it's a worthwhile transfer. Should I start Nunez this week? Depends who you start him over, but I don't think it's a bad fixture for him. Nonto or Mitrovic? This week it'd be Nonto. Nonto, yeah, sorry, we just answered that trying to spam. Dylan, hold Stones or sell? Well, I'd sell because he's out for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Bruno, Nonto, Game Week 22, and Andreas, Nottingham Forest, Game Week 23, or Odegaard, Martial, Game Week 22, Mahrez, Game Week 23. I think I'd go for... Yeah, that's a tough question. I think I'd go for the second option with Odegaard, Martial, Mahrez. Would you play Kane or Mahrez? I'd play Kane. Mahrez or Odegaard next week for Almiron? I still prefer Odegaard. Really close question though. Cucurella or White today? Ben White. Worth selling Mitrovic for Nketiah for a -4? I think so. Sorry, I think so. I think so. Bench Botman or Mitoma? I'd bench Botman. Mitoma has the highest ceiling, so I'd definitely start him with his current form. Sell Kane or KDB for Bruno? Look, as much as I prefer Kane, especially in Game Week 22, when you look at the next 4 fixtures as a whole and, you know, put everything into account, I'd probably rather sell Kane. Will Greenwood get the start from Leeds? I don't think so. I think Bamford will. Of course, with Rodrigo's injury, it does open up the possibility, but I don't think so. Should I use the triple captaincy this week or Haaland versus Villa? I would rather use it now in 22, which is why I've currently got the armband, the triple captaincy armband on Rashford. Arsenal fans dreaming about Chelsea goals. What is going on in the world? I don't know. Sometimes I have weird dreams. I think I once had a dream about, who is it? Was it Perisic scoring a bicycle kick? I don't know. Maybe it's just my mind playing tricks on me. I honestly don't know. It's a good question. Start Salah or Almiron? Salah. Bench 1, Almiron, Martinelli, White. I would probably bench Almiron. Bench 1, Botman, Dunk, White, Saliba. I would bench an Arsenal defender because you've already got two of them. So I would bench one of them and go for a double up in Newcastle defence with Trippier and Botman. So that's what I would rather do potentially. Good to see you, Dylan Mount. Thank you, Robin. I think I remember you saying that like last year or 2021. Will Leeds blank in any of the next game weeks? No. So in game week 25, it will be Brentford, Brighton, Man United, and Newcastle blanking. Game week 28 and 32 could be a blank for Leeds and a few other teams, but we don't know that yet. It all depends on who reaches the FA Cup quarterfinals and going into game week 32, the semi-finals of the FA Cup. Thoughts on Nonto? Decent cheap option, really good prospect. Not a great FPL option though, in my opinion, and I would rather just keep Mitrovic if you have him, Tony for now as well, or go for an Nketiah, Haaland, or Harry Kane. So he's not really on my agenda right now. Nketiah or Tony? Nketiah. For game week 22, I think Tony's slightly better, but who would I rather have for the long term, or at least the next 5 or 6 game weeks? It would be Nketiah. Remember, Tony will blank in 25, Nketiah won't. Bench one of Estupinian and White. I would bench White, yeah, and start Estupinian. Good attacking threat, more so than Ben White. Also a better fixture. Saka or Odegaard? I would go for Odegaard. That's what I've gone for myself. Bench White or Botman? You can see from my bench as well and the way I've structured it, I'm currently favouring White and benching Botman. Salah to Bruno for a -4, worth it? Yes. Bench one, Almiron or Ferguson? I'd probably bench Almiron. The problem with that is that Ferguson could be on the bench, and so he'll have fewer minutes to really prove himself, but that fixture is really good, and Ferguson has been in great form. Hey Dylan, do you plan on keeping Kep as your starting in the long term? I think so, because really, which goalkeepers would I go for? Nick Pope, but he blanks in 25. De Gea also blanks in 25, so I'm happy to keep him for now. Now that Jorginho has joined Arsenal, will he be the designated penalty taker? When he's on the pitch, he could be. It's going to be between him and Saka, of course, but I think Saka will still be on penalties, oddly enough. I think Jorginho might be second. Jorginho had a really good penalty record, but, you know, over the last 5 or 6 penalties he's taken, I think he's missed a few of them. So, yeah, he could, you know, take penalties when he's on the pitch, but is he going to be on the pitch that often anyway? Not so sure. I think he could just be a squad player, start mainly in the Europa League. But, yeah, I think he'll be second in command. That's my gut feeling, and I could be wrong, of course. Mitoma in for Almiron for a -4. I think it is worth it, but just bear in mind, game week 25, he does blank, just like Almiron. I would start Botman over Almiron, just because Newcastle defensively fill me with more confidence than them going forward, basically. Martial, good option? I don't think so. It's tricky for Martial owners to, you know, decide whether to keep him or maybe move to Nketiah for a hit, but I ultimately would sell him, whether in 22 or in 23. Keep an eye on Weston McKennie. Yeah, he was pretty good in the World Cup. I think Tyler Adams is the one that I'm more impressed by, of course, who already plays at Leeds. But yeah, in terms of FPL, he's not really someone I'm interested in. But yeah, in general, in terms of watching in football, yeah, he could be definitely a decent signing for them. Start Kane or March? I'd still go for Kane. Mitro and Bailey or Watkins and Mudryk? Probably Mitrovic and Bailey. I do like Mitrovic still. Bruno for Mahrez. I would like Mahrez for game week 23 though, so I probably would say no. Do get Bruno in though, and if the only way to do that is to get rid of Mahrez, then yeah, do it and then make the switcheroo in 23, potentially. KDB to Bruno, triple captain Rashford. I'd say yes to both. It's completely up to you though, but I'm going for both. I've done it already pretty much, so yeah. Bissaka will play or Dalot will start. I think Wan-Bissaka will start one game for sure, and I think he'll start both actually, if you're asking me now. Dalot's been injured for far too long. I think he'll be eased back in anyway. Worth bringing in an Arsenal defender for a -4? No. I just get them in 23. And which defender would I kind of favour right now? Probably Zinchenko. What do you think happens to Mount's minutes given the signings? I think they will be reduced, but you know, nothing's set in stone, and it could take some time for the signings to be eased in and embedded into the squad. I think Enzo starts today, though, oddly enough, because I saw some really, really trustworthy Argentine reporters saying if all the papers go through and Enzo's eligible to play, he's going to start, and all the papers have gone through, so I am backing him to get the start here. I am going for Rashford, but I really like Bruno as an option, and also maybe one thing to consider, Bruno has a great record against Leeds United. I think he's got 4 goals in 2 games against them. Rashford's record isn't that great against Palace and Leeds United, so maybe you might go for Bruno as a result. But both good options. I am leaning towards Rashford because of his underlying numbers and also because of his form. Who are the 3 best Arsenal assets in your opinion? Odegaard, Saka, and an Arsenal defender like Zinchenko right now. Look, that's because I really like 1 defender and 2 attackers. You have to say Nketiah is arguably the 3rd best option right now. And he's got the most points in the last few weeks. Mitoma in, Pereira out. I probably wouldn't because Pereira doesn't blank in 25 and you might want to do other moves in 22 and 23 as well. But yeah, Mitoma is definitely a better asset right now, undoubtedly. But you also have to think about blank game at 25 and the future. Who should be a priority right now? An extra United asset, City asset or Spurs asset? Spurs assets will be at the bottom of that. So it's definitely a United asset for me in 22. Then you can trim it down heading into 23 and then start to get 2 or 3 City players in. So I would say United asset is the priority in Game Week 22. As an Argentinian Arsenal fan, what do you think of Enzo to Chelsea? I'll be honest, I'm not really happy with that move. I think it would have been better if Enzo stayed with Benfica until the end of the season and then potentially moved to another club in the summer. Look, it can work out for him, of course, but when you look at the list of all these big signings, you know, over 90 million, you know, Grealish, Antony, Lukaku, Pogba, you know, anyone you can name, it hasn't turned out right. Even Pepe at Arsenal. I am very, very worried about him at Chelsea. I think it could be a really bad move for him. But let's wait and see. Of course, it can go right. And of course, Chelsea made some other really good signings in terms of some young players with a lot of potential like Felix and Mudryk. So it can work out well. But I think Chelsea is it can be a toxic environment and also an ever-changing one. There's always a change in manager and a change in play style and a lot of uncertainty surrounding the owner. So I'm not so sure if that's the right environment for him. Let's wait and see, though. Mitro to Nketiah, I would do it, especially for free. But I'm also not adverse to keeping Mitro. Is Triple Captain more favourable in 22 than 23? In my opinion, yes, because Haaland plays Aston Villa at home, which is not too bad to be fair, but they have been in good form under Emery, and also Arsenal away. And actually, since Emery has taken over, only Arsenal have accumulated more points in the Premier League than Aston Villa. So City will be playing 2 of the best teams on form in the last 5 or 6 games. That's just something to think about. And also Rashford's form has been absolutely incredible. So in my opinion, it is better to use it now. But with Erling Haaland, of course, it could always go wrong. Yeah, I'm using the triple captaincy. I'm pretty sure you can see on screen, you know, when the captaincy armband is, you know, highlighted in white, that means the triple captaincy is activated. Is Weghorst a sound option? I don't think so, honestly. I don't think he's a bad player, but in terms of FPL prospects, I'm not really a big fan. Bench Kane or me? I'd bench me. I'd start Kane for sure. Hi Dylan, Tony and Martinelli out for Nketiah and Bruno -4. No. I would do Martinelli to Bruno, if you can afford it, for free. I wouldn't do Tony to Nketiah this week. I would do it in 23. Your selection of Kepa is genius. I wouldn't say it's genius, you know, and a lot of people have done it. But I have to say, he has outperformed my expectations. 19 points in the last 2 games, including a 9-pointer at Anfield. I didn't expect it, I'll be honest. We'll bring him in after Game Week 22, after I see how Pope and Ramsdale do. To be fair, though, Pope and Ramsdale are, you know, they're playing in better teams, better defences, so I don't really think they're worse options, so to speak, and they do have more points. But in terms of points per 90, I think Kepa's actually the best of any keeper, even over Nick Pope. Nketiah or Odegaard this week? I'd say Odegaard because he has 2 goals in 3 games against Everton, scored in both games last season against the Toffees. Up the Toffees. I love that video. I don't know why. Cancelo replacement? Good question. So United defenders look really good this week, but you already have Luke Shaw probably, and you might want a Bruno Fernandes or Rashford. So I would say Arsenal defenders like Zinchenko, Ake look really good as well. So yeah, White, Zinchenko, Ake, take your pick from those 3. And long term, I would definitely recommend or consider Pedro Porro from Spurs. Best 4 forwards for the future? I still think Tony. My issue with him is that he blanks in 25. If it wasn't for that, you know, I would have no issues whatsoever in keeping him. And I think I will keep him, at least as things stand. But yeah, Haaland, Kane, and Ivan Toney, and Nketiah. I think that's the top 4. Bench Kane or Martinelli? I'd probably bench Martinelli from those. For what it's worth, Enzo averaged 96 passes per game at Benfica. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, he is kind of how do I say this? He's not someone I would consider an FPL in terms of goals and assists, but he gets on the ball. He likes to make things happen. With Argentina in the World Cup as well, you know, he played in a different role. He tends to play as a box-to-box with Benfica and River Plate, but with Argentina, he played as a holding midfielder. He got on the ball a lot, dictated play, also broke up the play pretty well, I have to say, for someone making his debut pretty much for Argentina in a World Cup stage and playing in a different position. So yeah, I think he is obviously a big talent. He could work well with Chelsea. And look, it could end up being a really good signing, even at that money, but I'm just still very skeptical, to be honest. Who would you bench out of these three? Probably Odegaard, but I'm not so sure about that. Almiron, Andreas, or Mitoma for the next few game weeks? Mitoma, but he does blank in 25. Andreas is the only one from those three that doesn't. But having said that, it would be Mitoma. How about Heung-min Son? Well, he did score a brace in the last FA Cup game, and he does face City, who he tends to love to play against, to be fair. I wouldn't go for him there. The simple reason why is because you've got Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli, Mahrez, De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes, Rashford, Mitoma. I think all of those are better options in FPL than Son. And if you look at the whole season, Son has been awful. Why do you start White instead of Botman? It's a really close call. I don't think there's much in it. The reason why is because I think West Ham will score. Early in the week, I was favouring Botman, but since then, Bruno Guimaraes has been suspended because of the red card in the Carabao Cup, and I think that already reduces the chances of a clean sheet. And looking at recent games between West Ham and Newcastle, I could see West Ham scoring a goal, and also West Ham are getting into some form now, obviously getting that big win over Everton in the recent Premier League game, and Bowen scoring again in the FA Cup. So there's quite a lot that's changed since the team selection video in that regard. Yeah, David Beckham's son has signed for Brentford. That is true, rock and roll. I think it was early last month, I think it was made. Let me see if I've still got the link. So, yeah, without malice, this is the answer to your question. Click the link. The kits that you see on screen are away kits. It's a Chrome extension. You can add it to Google Chrome or Brave. Thoughts on KDB? I think he's still a good option over the next 3 or 4 game weeks, but I am open to the idea of selling him to Bruno. I've already done that myself. Double Newcastle defence. I don't think it's a big problem this week. I still think they have a chance. Having said that, I think the chances have reduced with Bruno Guimaraes being suspended. Start Ake, Elise to Sam Greenwood. I would start... That's a good question. I would start Ake from those three. Anthony for Kulusevski from -4. I wouldn't go to Anthony, honestly. I wouldn't go for him. It's good to be different. I don't want to discourage people from going for their own picks. If you back Anthony, go for him, but I just don't see him as a good FPL asset right now. Get rid of Almiron or Mitrovic. I would rather get rid of Almiron from those two, definitely. Dylan, did you see Joao Felix's debut? Yeah, he was playing pretty well before his red card, which obviously overshadowed everything. He will be back in Game Week 23, and you know, once you have him coming back, Enzo Fernandez embedding into the team, Mudryk as well starting, they could be very exciting. Gakpo or Mudryk instead of Rodrigo? Probably Mudryk. Gakpo hasn't impressed so far at Liverpool. Mudryk only had a really brief cameo against Liverpool, but he was very impressive, and I would probably rather go for him. Almiron, Martinelli or Mahrez for Bruno Fernandes? I would rather go for... Who would I get rid of? Definitely Almiron, and I'd keep Martinelli and Mahrez, yeah. Mahrez or Mitoma this week? Definitely Mitoma. Kepa or Meslier? Honestly, I don't see a clean sheet for either of them, so you maybe just back Meslier because he has an extra fixture. So probably that. Brennan Johnson or Bailey long term? I mean, they're different positions. Johnson's a forward and Bailey's a midfielder. So based on how things are going, I would rather have Brennan Johnson up front and go for a midfield 5. Why? Who to bench? Kane or Almiron? I'd bench Almiron and start Kane. Start 2 between Mitrovic, White and Botman. I would personally bench Mitrovic. Play Mitrovic on Botman. I would bench Mitrovic and play Botman. Dylan, what do you think about Kepa or Meslier? Like I said earlier, because of the extra fixture, I'd go for Meslier. Not expecting a clean sheet for either team anyway. In the double for Leeds and also in the single game week there for Kepa. Kane or Mudryk to play this game week? Kane still. Pick one to bench, please. Mitoma, Kane or Saka? Oh dear, you really have to do this to me. Probably Saka. I'd probably bench him reluctantly. Kepa or Edison? This week, I'd go for Kepa. Can I sell Almiron this week? Of course, I've done it myself. I think he can score over the next 2 game weeks with some great fixtures coming up, including the Bournemouth one in 23, but West Ham have improved over the last week. I could see them becoming a sterner test there for Newcastle, and Almiron has blanked 4 times in a row. I think the magic has kind of waned a little bit, but yeah, you can definitely sell him. There's a lot of alternatives as well. Starting James, I probably wouldn't, but having said that, it depends who you're starting him over anyway. I would start him over a Bueno, for example. I would start him over Ake potentially, just in case, but I don't see James, playing 90, maximum 70 minutes, something like that. I don't see him getting, I wouldn't be surprised if he was subbed off just before the 60th minute mark and didn't bank the clean sheet. Start 2 of the 3, Burn or White. Well, there's 2 players there. I'm not sure who the third one is, so let me know who the third player is. In terms of Burn versus White, I probably would favour White, especially if you have Trippier already. If I activate my triple captain now before the deadline, will I still be able to reverse it before the deadline? Yes. The same goes for the bench boost. Those are the only 2 chips you can reverse before the deadline. The wildcard and the free hit, once you activate it, you can't reverse that decision. Who to start, Pope or Raya? I'd go for Pope, actually. Ake or Kanji? I'm favouring Ake right now. Not just because he scored against Arsenal, but because Cancelo's departure means Ake's more nailed on as the left-back. He can also play as a centre-back. And with a Kanji, I'm seeing a lot of City fans anyway clamouring for him to be benched, or at least not to start every single game as he has been doing. Of course, that has no impact on Pep Guardiola's team selection. Start Burn or Almiron? Sorry, I just missed your question. Start Burn or Almiron? Already have Trippier in the squad. In that case, I would be, at least definitely considering Almiron, so I can see your dilemma. I think I'd still go for Burn, though, oddly enough, yeah. Yeah, Almiron could punish sellers, of course he could. Like I said, I think he'll score 1 goal in the next 2 games, but I think it's still a necessary evil. I did mention Zinchenko earlier when people asked about Arsenal defenders. I think he is the best one right now. My big problem with him is that he's injury-prone, and it would not surprise me if in a certain game week, Tierney came in for him to give Zinchenko a rest and to ease the minutes. Now, I don't think that will happen, at least in the immediate short term, but my concern with him is the injuries. Bruno in for Salah? Yes, it's a no-brainer for me. Start Martinelli or me? I'd go for Martinelli. Sell Cucurella on my bench for sure for a -4? Definitely, 100%. Bring in Odegaard for Almiron or Nketiah for Mitrovic? Good question. I'd bring in Odegaard for Almiron. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat, Aaron. I appreciate it as always. Odegaard and Mitoma for Martinelli and Almiron? It's a good question. So let's kind of pick out holes in this. So Mitoma blanks in 25, just like Almiron. And with Martinelli, just signed a new contract, is facing teams like Everton who concede a lot of chances on his flank. So I definitely would bring in Odegaard, and I like Mitoma a lot. But you also have to weigh things up. Are you well set up for Game Week 25? Do you have the majority of players you have for 22 and 23 already? If so, I would go ahead with Odegaard and Mitoma and bring them in. But having said that, I think Martinelli could come back to bite you. Almiron, of course, has 2 good games coming up, including 23, of course. But ultimately, would I do it or not? Yes, I would. But just bear in mind, there are some cons to that as well. Start Mahrez or Botman? I'd go for Botman, actually. Sell Salah or KDB for Fernandes? Definitely Salah. Keep KDB, sell Salah. Start Martial or Cucurella? I'd start Martial, just in case. Is it the right time to triple captain Rashford? I think so. If you want to captain a Man United player, this is the best time to do it, in my opinion, and I'd go for him or Bruno Fernandes. Bench 1 between Akanji or KDB. I'd rather bench Akanji and start KDB. Start Mahrez or Botman, says Anthony. I'd start Botman, like I said. Sell KDB to Bruno or roll the 2 free transfers. I would sell to Bruno, and you could always make the reverse switch in 23 as well. Start Estupinian or Trippier? I wouldn't bench Trippier. It has to be Trippier still. I'd start Trippier. Transfer Mudryk for Rodrigo this week, or Rodrigo and Kane for De Bruyne and Mitrovic next game week? I would do Rodrigo and Kane for De Bruyne and Mitrovic next game week, Aaron. Almiron out for a -4 for Mitoma or Mahrez long term? Mahrez, because Mahrez doesn't blank in 25. He also faces Bournemouth, doubles in 23. As a result, I would rather go for Mahrez over the next 5 or 6 game weeks. After that, then I would be really considering Mitoma, but he could also blank in 28. So that's why I'd ultimately go for Mahrez right now. Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate the kind words. Start Cucurella or Mitrovic? I'd rather go for Mitro. Kane to Nketiah and Almiron to Fernandes is SD for a -4, or KDB to Fernandes and Almiron to Mahrez for a -4. So I have to process that because those are some really good moves and it's pretty close, I think. Ultimately, I think I'd go for KDB to Fernandes and Almiron to Mahrez. Yeah, I think that's the best move for you. Martinelli or Botman first bench? I'd rather bench, or first bench. So if that's, you know, your bench order, basically Martinelli ahead of Botman. That's the way I'd go about it. No United players who to captain. Mate, wow. I would try to get 1 or 2 United players in there, mate. Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, whoever it may be, Luke Shaw. But who to captain outside Man United? Good question. I haven't really considered it because I'm just so set on Rashford and Bruno. I probably would go for either an Arsenal midfielder like Odegaard or Saka, or I would go for a Erling Haaland, basically. Yeah, I would try to get a United player, mate. Hi, Dylan. Sell Andres for Matoma or sell KDB for Bruno? I'd sell KDB for Bruno, Ziofan. I think that move will gain you more points, basically. And also, you can make the switch in 23. Almiron to Odegaard for a hit? Yes, but like I said earlier, you could consider doing that move in 23, whether it's for free or for a hit in 23. But yeah, I think it's worth it. Triple captain Rashford or next week for Haaland? I'd triple captain Rashford this week. That's what I'm doing, so I'm not going to give you a different answer. Martinelli and Bruno for a -4. Depends who you're getting rid of, but yeah, I like those transfers. I do prefer Saka and Odegaard, though, over Martinelli. Best wildcard game at 23. Check out my wildcard video. Not much has changed, if anything. I didn't have Rodrigo there. I had a triple up in United, which I have here on screen. Yeah, not much has changed, if anything. Kane or Mitoma? Mitoma this week, long-term Kane. Start 2, March, Kane, Almiron. I would start Kane and March because of the fixture. Worth selling Martial for Bruno? Definitely, 100%. Also, Reece James, far too injury-prone. I wouldn't go for him. And besides, Chelsea are a very poor defence, very inconsistent this season. They're 10th for a reason. I wouldn't go for him just yet. Once he gets a run of games, you know, and he's getting 60-plus minutes consistently, then yeah, of course, he becomes an option. But right now, I'd rather go for Man City, Man United, Arsenal defenders. Not to mention, I've also got my eye on Pedro Porro from Spurs. Thank you, LFC, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Cancelo to Mings or Ake? Definitely Ake, because he's got the double in 23, a great fixture in 25 against his former club, Bournemouth. They play in 25 and 28. I have Trippier and White and Shaw. So City could blank in 28, but he will definitely start in 25. He's got a fixture and he's got a double in 23. So as a result, I would go for Nathan Ake. And besides, Man City have a far better defence than Aston Villa. Almiron to Martinelli for free transfer? Yes. But like I said, I do prefer some other Arsenal midfielders as well. Whom to bench and start says Anthony Diaz. I would bench... Good question. I would bench Almiron, Mahrez, and Bueno, I think. You could consider starting a Mahrez over a Botman or White, but I definitely would bench Bueno and potentially Almiron as well, Anthony. Is it the right time to get Chelsea players in my squad? Not necessarily, because I think this is also a time of transition and Chelsea players might take their time to bed into the squad. You know, it's already a turbulent season for them and it might not be that simple, even for players of the quality of Enzo Fernandes, Felix and Mudryk, to just come in and be really good. Of course, Mudryk was really impressive in his cameo appearance the other week, but yeah, I think it is the right time to consider Chelsea players and to potentially add them in the weeks to come. But right now, I'd probably just wait and see from a distance. Kane or Mitoma? Mitoma this week, like I've answered already. Kane or Nonto? I'd still go for Kane. Do you triple captain Rashford? Yes, you can see on screen. Mitrovic or Cucurella, or Almiron or Cucurella? Out of those options, I'd probably start Almiron or Mitrovic, basically. In terms of a duo, who would I rather have long term? It would be Mitrovic and Cucurella. Lose Almiron or keep, sorry. I'd lose him because there are so many midfielders to go to. Yeah, I think so. Look, I'm not saying you have to do it. If you have a triple captaincy, you have to do it now because you might be of the opinion of using it later in the season and you're not too fussed if you are also considering the free hit or wild card or bench boost in 29, 40, 34 or 37, for example. Having said that, though, I think this is a really good opportunity, one of the best times to use it all season, and that's why I'm going to go for it. My only concern with this is that Rashford doesn't have a great record against Crystal Palace and Leeds United. -4 to get rid of KDB and Almiron. Depends. If you're bringing in Bruno and an Arsenal midfielder, I do like it, but it's also about timing. You could consider holding off one move and then doing it for free next week. Start Mitro or Botman? I'd start Botman. Start Mount or Martinelli? I'd go for Martinelli. Remove Cancelo for who? As I've said earlier, I'd go for Arsenal, Man City, and Man United defenders. So if you don't have Luke Shaw, I'd go for him for sure. If you don't have Arsenal or Man City defenders, then I'd go for them. That is the way I'd go about it, basically. And Ake and Zinchenko look like the best options from their respective clubs. Buy Nonto or just play Ake and roll? Good question. I'd probably play Ake and roll. Mitro to Nketiah for a hit. Yeah, I think so. And he also doubles in 23, which is the main appeal of that hit. I would start Kane this week over Mahrez. Choose one between Nketiah, Mahrez, or Tony and Odegaard for next week. Already have Saka, Martinelli. Look, long-term, Tony and Odegaard for sure. My only problem with that is that Tony blanks in 25, but I would rather go in that direction instead. I think so, Wei Seng. I don't really see a reason why Rashford wouldn't start both. Of course, I'm not saying he's definitely going to start 100% nailed on, but I just don't really see why all of a sudden Ten Hag will be resting Rashford when he predominantly plays his strongest team in the Premier League, and I think Rashford will start. Any new transfers that catch your eye? Pedro Porro from Spurs, from an FPL perspective anyway. In terms of overall, the most interested one for me is Enzo Fernandes as an Argentine, and also because I know his qualities, but in terms of FPL, definitely Pedro Porro. Sell Almiron for who? Odegaard, Saka, Mahrez. I think those are the three I'd look to. KDB plus White plus De Gea to Bruno, Ake, Ramsdale for a -4. I don't see... I'm guessing you're getting rid of De Gea because you already have a triple up in United, and that's the only way you can get to Bruno Fernandes. But honestly, I wouldn't do that. I would not do that here. I don't think it's worth it. You're getting in Ake for White when White has a better chance of a clean sheet this week, arguably. And in 23, you know, it's quite close between the two anyway. So honestly, I wouldn't take that hit. Thank you, Coop C. Coop. As always, good to see you. Mitro or Martial to start? Probably Martial because of the double. Almiron or Mount for Odegaard? Oh, I'd rather sell Mount and keep Almiron from those two. Triple Captain Rashford, I'm doing that. I think it's a good move. Hi, Dylan. Would you sell Almiron for Odegaard for a -4? Yes, but you could hold and do it in 23. Better combo, Bruno and Ferguson or Odegaard and Martial? Bruno and Ferguson. The reason why is because I don't really rate Martial anyway as an FPL asset. Long term, I think Odegaard is better than Bruno in terms of value per or points per millions, you could say. But for Gimmick 22 as well, you're looking at it that way. I think Bruno Fernandes is the way to go there. I'm going for Rashford as my captain, so that would be my answer. I have no problems with Bruno though, and if you're looking for a differential captaincy, this is it. His ownership is around 13%. It will probably go up to around 15% by the time the deadline hits, but he's still going to be a mega differential for captainers, let alone triple captainers. Worth having double Man United defence in Shaw and De Gea this week. If you're not going for Bruno, then yes, definitely. I think it's a really good call there. The only issue is that in Game Week 25, you would probably have to make some transfers to get rid of De Gea or Luke Shaw, but I think in 22 it pays off. Mitoma Odegaard for a -4. Odegaard, because Odegaard has a double in 23 and long term he's a really good option. Thank you, Aaron, once again. I appreciate it. De Gea, Trippier, White, Shaw, Perisic, Mahrez, KDB, Martinelli, Almiron, Rashford, Kane, Haaland. Which two to take out and for who? Good question. So the thing is, you know, players like Mahrez, who I don't like for the Game Week 22, I like him in the long term. So the player that I look at and think I want to get rid of is probably Almiron and Perisic. Those are the two to get rid of. So what would I do? Just seeing how many Arsenal players you have. You've got Martinelli and White. So yeah, I will do Almiron to Odegaard. Saka's another possibility if you want to consider that. And the other one is Perisic, and I would go to a Man City... Oh no, you've already got a triple up in City. So yeah. Yeah, definitely Almiron to Odegaard. I think that's very simple. Or Saka. Then Perisic, if you were to get rid of him, it's a bit trickier because you've already got... You've got Luke Shaw, you've got De Gea, and you've got Rashford. So yeah, you've already got the triple ups already in those teams. But Then again, Spurs do have some good long-term fixtures. Definitely, Almiron move I think is very simple. I've already discussed that. But then I would consider maybe Perisic, and you can bring him back in a few weeks later, although that might be counterproductive. Nketiah or Tony? I do like Tony longer term, and I'm talking about until the end of the season. But when you look at the next 5 games, with Tony's blank in 25 in mind, I do prefer Nketiah. So it just depends what you're looking for. Can only do Odegaard transferring out Martinelli. In that case, I would just go for Mitoma. But also bear in mind how you're set up for Game Week 25. That's the big issue. Mitro to Nketiah. Yes, but Mitrovic is still a good hold. Hey Dylan, can you suggest to me a 4.6 million defender? Sure thing. I would say Lisandro Martinez if you don't have a triple up in United already. Otherwise, I would probably look at... So Pedro Porro's 5 million. Ben White, you probably can't afford anyways, 4.7 I think. That is a tricky one. Ake's 5 million. I like Estupinian. My only issue with that is he blanks in 25, but yeah, those are some names for you. Hey mate, who to start, Raya or Kepa? I'd go for Kepa. Zinchenko or Botman or Ferguson? I'd go for Zinchenko. Luka Dean or Walker, and Darwin or Mitrovic this week. This week I'd go for Darwin actually, and in terms of Luka Dean versus Walker, I'd go for Luka Dean. Almiron and KDB to Fernandes and Mitoma? Yes. Yes. Once again, if you're happy with Game Week 25 and if you don't have too many blank game makers, I'd go for it. Nketiah or Mitrovic? I'd go for Nketiah right now. Hi Dylan, Cancelo replacement? So apart from Luke Shaw is the obvious and maybe a second United defender like Lisandro Martinez, I would say Zinchenko, Ake, Ben White, those sorts of options, even Gabriel Saliba. But basically an Arsenal Man City defender, and from City I would recommend Ake or Akanji, and from Arsenal I think any of them are good, but I probably would favour Zinchenko right now. White or Nketiah for the bench? I think Arsenal more likely to score than they are to concede, so I would start Nketiah, he also has a high ceiling, and bench Ben White. Fernandes versus Rashford triple captain. I think it's really close. What I like about Bruno over Rashford is that he's lower owned, so any points he gets will give you a massive boost, assuming that Rashford doesn't go crazy. And also, Fernandes has a great record against Leeds United. I think he has 4 goals in 2 games. He's only got 1 goal in 6 games against Palace, but he did score in the recent meeting. So that's the kind of pros behind going for Fernandes. With Rashford, though, he's in amazing form, probably the form of his life, comparable to when he burst onto the scene in 2016. He's also been fantastic, since the restart, basically. In the World Cup, he was incredible, and I think he's been a better FPL option this season in general. So that's why I'm going to go for Rashford, but honestly, I have no problems with that whatsoever. 215k, is it mad to captain Bruno? No, I don't think so. I've actually considered it heavily, but like I said, with Rashford's form, that's why I'm going to go for him. But yeah, of course, it's nothing wrong with going for Bruno Fernandes. Thank you, Akeem. I appreciate that. Should I start Ake or Bueno in 22? Probably Ake. Yeah, I think so. Who to bench, Cucurella or Burn? I would bench Cucurella and start Burn. March or Fernandes? I mean, it's definitely Fernandes, mate, for sure. Andreas or Walker? This week, I'd actually favour Andreas Pereira. I have a disagreement. Ben White was dreadful versus Man United. That's not a bad shout, and Tomiyasu was actually very good against Man City, and despite Tomiyasu struggling a bit at the beginning against Rashford, he ultimately kept him very quiet at the end, so you might be onto something there, mate. I would not be completely surprised if Ben White was benched. When you look at this season and last season, Ben White is someone who tends to just start every single game, but considering recent form, so to speak, and Tomiyasu playing really well, it is a possibility. It's something we have to take into account, so I think he will start, but I can see why you think that. How important is it to have Bruno this week? Look, I'm not a big fan of the term essential and all of that, but I think he is one of the very best options in the game in 22. And not to mention, he's got some great long-term fixtures. The only thing that lets him down is the blank in 25 and the fact that City double in 23. But yeah, I think he's as close to essential this week as you can get. Will Chilwell start? I don't think so. I think Enzo will start. I think potentially Mudryk as well. I don't think Chilwell starts, though. The same goes for Reece James and potentially Sterling too. I think they'll be on the bench. Almiron plus Cucurella to Bruno plus Gabriel for a -4? Yes. Yeah, I think so. You could keep Cucurella and just do the transfer next week to Gabriel, but honestly, it's a good transfer. Play Almiron or Botman? I would go for Botman. Opinions on Onto? We have covered this already, so just to kind of recap very briefly, he's a good cheap striker, a really big prospect. I like watching him play, but I'm not a big fan of him in FPL, and I would rather go to Nketiah, even keep Mitrovic, go for Ivan Toney long term, go for Haaland and Harry Kane. So ultimately, I wouldn't go for him. And also, yeah, I can understand why you might go for him, because you might want a 3-5-2 formation ultimately and go for 5 midfielders. So he might fit the bill, but I would also rather go for Ferguson. So yeah, he's not my favourite option, but he might make sense in your situation. Like I said, it's because Bruno Guimaraes is suspended. I think that could play a part in Newcastle conceding. Newcastle have struggled to West Ham in recent years. West Ham are in good form as well. In the last week, they obviously scored a few past Everton. The likes of Bowen as well scored in the FA Cup. So there's a few things that have kind of made me shift my opinion. Now, I'm not completely convinced about Ben White, and I think Everton could be really dangerous against Arsenal with Sean Dyche being the new manager. Having said that, though, I am open to the idea of going for White. Time has flown by the way. We're almost at the deadline. We've got around, 39 minutes, if I can count? 49 minutes. So yeah, still a bit of time, but we're fast approaching that deadline. Be sure to lock in your teams fairly soon. Bench 1, Mahrez, White, Botman. I would bench Mahrez. He's got the highest ceiling of the three, but I think White and Botman are more likely to return. Now, you might disagree and just start Mahrez. That's completely fine. But yeah, I think I would bench Mahrez, and that's just a personal opinion of mine. Mahrez or Odegaard? This week, definitely Odegaard. Long term, I'd probably still say Odegaard, actually. Although in the 23, I would maybe favour Mahrez a little bit more. But yeah, I'd go for Odegaard. Also, Maximan start. Not so sure about that. Perisic or Castagna? Probably Castagna. I don't really back any of them, to be fair. Captain Bruno or Haaland? Definitely Bruno from those two this week. Replace Almiron to Matoma with a -4? No, I wouldn't. I like Matoma a lot. I think he could pay off that hit, but he blanks in 25 as well. I would rather go elsewhere with a -4 hit. Weiseng says Almiron to Odegaard / Matoma. I think Odegaard's better with a double in 23 and no blank in 25. Or KDB to Bruno. Or -4 to get both. I would do KDB to Bruno, Weiseng, and then get Odegaard in for Almiron in 23. That's the way I'd go about it. Let me show you a few screens that I haven't been able to show you so far. And that obviously includes the fixtures. Chelsea versus Fulham is the first game. The West London derby we have today. We might even get early lineups. If I am streaming until 7 p.m, then I will be showing you. But if not, then of course we can discuss it on Discord and also in the comment section of this video as well. The discussion will continue. But I want to show you a few other screens which include the fixture ticker. And Arsenal are now top again, with Man United having that confirmed blank in Game Week 25 because they reached the Carabao Cup final. Leeds United are second, so I can see why some people want to go for the likes of Nonto and why they brought in Rodrigo earlier this week. But yeah, Arsenal, Man City and Man United assets for me are the best options to go for right now. And in terms of the ones at the bottom, you've got Bournemouth, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Brentford and Leicester. And of course, with Brentford and Newcastle, the main reason why is because of the blank in Game Week 25. In terms of predicted points, this might help you with the captaincy or with your transfer plans. Rashford is top with a projected points of 14.6. Bruno Fernandes is the closest with 12.8. Disagree with Martial in third, but I can see why he is in here. And Luke Shaw is fourth. And let me actually show you a few other things, because this could also help you with when to use the triple captaincy. So Anthony, Casemiro, De Gea, Varane, Lisandro Martinez is a very Man United centric double game week here. Of course, Bamford is in 10th position here in terms of projected points in Game Week 22. But now let me show you something really quickly here in Game Week 23. So if we look at Erling Haaland's projected points, it is 12.3 when he has the double game week of Aston Villa at home and Arsenal away. Odegaard is at 10.3 and Nketiah as well. Saka's quite close by too. You also have De Bruyne in there as well. But as you can see, none of them as high as Rashford's projected points for double game week 22. So just something to bear in mind. I'm not saying, just go off algorithms and base your decisions off that, but that is something else to consider. I think Rashford has a really good chance of a big haul here. My only concern with him, like I said, is his poor record against Leeds and Crystal Palace. Next up is the price changes. Bruno Fernandes is just, he's going to go up in price. It's just inevitable at this point. Mitoma, Odegaard, Saka, Rashford, Nketiah, Shaw, Zinchenko, Ake and Lewis also very, very close to going up. If not today, then probably in the next few days as well. Botman's another one, despite his blank in 25. Nonto, Erling Haaland, who's owned by pretty much everybody, and his dog, well, he's still about to go up very soon as well. Even the likes of Varane and Wan-Bissaka. Obviously, the double gaming playing a huge part in that. In terms of those going down, look at Martinelli. Jesus, I can see why there's a clamour to get rid of him. But that is absolutely ridiculous. I've never seen a percentage that high in this website. Almiron's another one who I already got rid of. Martial, Mitrovic, and then a few other players like Darwin Nunez too. So be sure to check this website out, fplstatistics.co.uk. And anything else we want to show you? Yes, the stats. This could also help you with your triple captaincy decision in Gameweek 22. Bruno Fernandes versus Rashford. Very similar stats all round, actually. So Bruno, 9 goal contributions. Rashford with 12. Shots are very similar, although Rashford leads in both categories by 10 each in terms of shots and shots on target. Shots in the box, he does lead by quite some margin. XG as well. He's got triple the amount that Bruno Fernandes does, but then Bruno has a higher expected assists and far more key passes, more big chances created. But then you look at big chances as well, and very, very big difference. But when you look at big chances and big chances created combined, very similar between the two once again. I think Fernandes is a great option, especially when you look at Gameweek 17, from the World Cup until now. But Marcus Rashford, I think, is the informed Man United asset, and he has been the best FPL option they've had to offer all season. So I am going for him at the moment. Let me actually show you something else quickly. So since the restart, just to give you another perspective, so 6 appearances for both. Fernandes with 5 goal contributions, Rashford with 6. And you also see some of these stats as well. And yeah, honestly, yeah, kind of the same thing. Rashford kind of leading in some of these statistics as well, but it is close in certain areas. In terms of expected goal involvements, very, very similar. Also big chances and big chances created combined. But yeah, ultimately this kind of tells the story of the whole season. I am going to go for Rashford as my triple captain. I have to say though, Bruno Fernandes' ownership is really, really tempting. Let me know with a one-word answer in the live chat whether you're going for Bruno or Rashford. If you want to see a poll as well, then be sure to let me know and I can put a poll out for you. It could also help you make your final decision too. Botman for Arsenal defender next week. Yes, I think that makes sense. Botman blanks in 25 and you've also got Arsenal doubling in Gameweek 23. So yeah, I think that is a good move. March or Mitoma to pick? Mitoma, Odegaard or Mahrez? Odegaard. Do I keep Martial because have Shaw and Rashford can't get to Bruno without a hit? I would get rid of Martial and get Bruno for a hit, if you can. Mitro to Nketiah from -4? I think I would do it. Bench Havertz or Mitrovic? I would probably bench Mitrovic, actually, oddly enough, for this week only. Play with Robertson or Almiron? I would start Almiron. Start one of Bamford or Nketiah? I'd go for Bamford because of the double. Simply that. Who to replace Rodrigo with? Odegaard, Saka or Mahrez? Any one of those 3 that you don't have already. In the way that I'd kind of order it is Odegaard first, maybe Mahrez second and Saka third, but honestly, that's debatable. Play with Robertson, Almiron, yeah, we went through that. Mitoma, Odegaard or Mahrez? I think we just went through that as well. Odegaard's my answer. Do I keep Martial? Yeah, we went through that as well. What's your final team like? You can replay the live chat or replay the live stream, should I say, and you will see it. And I'm going to put the team up again very, very soon. But it's basically what I said in my team selection video. Nothing has changed. Martinelli bench for Trossard. I think that could happen in the future, but I believe Martinelli will start in 22. Almiron to Mitoma or keep? I would keep and then sell Almiron to another midfielder that has a double in 23. Start Mitrovic or Almiron? I would go for Almiron. Yep, I think they are definitely at risk. But for the time being, I'm keeping Martinelli. Get Odegaard or Saka next week. I do prefer Odegaard, so that will be my answer. Very, very close between the two. Should I pick Saka or Odegaard for Martinelli this week for -4? I would hold Martinelli and do the transfer next week, if anything. Prefer Arsenal defence or triple attack and Nketiah? I prefer Arsenal defender and 2 Arsenal attackers. In the long term. I have Shaw, Martinez and Rashford. Should I drop Martinez for a -4 to get Bruno? It's a tough question. I probably wouldn't, because you also would maybe want to do Bruno to Mahrez or De Bruyne in 23 or an Arsenal midfielder. So I would just keep Martinez and go for a differential double up in Man United's defence. Bench 1, Mitoma, Tony, Nketiah. Probably Nketiah, oddly enough, but very, very tough call. I have Trippier already. Should I start Mitrovic or Botman? I would start Botman still, Cameron. Mudryk, Odegaard, Bamford, Nketiah start 3. I would start Odegaard, Bamford, and probably Nketiah. I'd bench Mudryk. Tough call, bench Mahrez or Martinelli. I'd bench Mahrez. Odegaard with a -4. I don't know who you're selling, but I'm guessing it's Almiron. It's not a bad move. I think it is worth the hit, but you also could just do the move for free next week. I'm replacing Mount for Mahrez for a -8. Worth it? I mean, I don't trust Mount, to be fair. And with Mahrez, it's a bit of a weird time to get him in. I know he hauled against Spurs recently, but he's facing them away, and City have had a dreadful time at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Yes, it is worth a hit. I would maybe do it, but you could also go to an Arsenal midfielder this week and then bring Mahrez in next week for another midfielder. Kepa or Pope to start? I go for Pope. Would you bench Kane for March and Mitoma? I would bench him for Mitoma, not for March. Let's have some more light in the house, lads. Okay, so, I don't know why I said that, by the way. Play Meslier or Kepa? Meslier because he has the double game week, basically. Ferguson or Almiron start? Almiron. Really close call, though, and that's basically because I'm not so sure if Ferguson starts. Hi, Dylan. Salah to Bruno and Pereira to Odegaard or Mitoma? Yep, Salah to Bruno, fine, and I do Pereira to Odegaard. Looking at Chelsea's upcoming fixtures, they are very good. Yeah, of course, I am considering it, but look, I've already got a double up in Chelsea anyway. I want to get rid of Cucurella. Which Chelsea signing am I considering? Maybe Mudryk. But with Mahrez, Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli, Mitoma, Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne, it's not in my, at the top of my agenda, basically. But Mudryk is the most exciting option, in my opinion. I really like Enzo Fernandez as a player, not necessarily as an FPL option. Thank you, Adil. I've already made 2 transfers. I brought in Bruno Fernandes and Odegaard for Almiron and Kevin De Bruyne, and I'm triple captaining Rashford. So that is my plans. It's already done. Yeah, Balogun. Nah, I wouldn't say it's the next Mbappe. No, you can't say that. Balogun is a good striker. I've already knew about him since, 2017-18. Hasn't really shown it at Arsenal yet. Hasn't had too many opportunities, but he is a good goal scorer. And it would be nice to see him competing with Nketiah and Jesus next year and having 3 competent strikers. Nketiah or Odegaard? Odegaard. Which would you choose, Kane or March or both, and bench one of either Haaland, Martinelli or Mahrez? I would choose Kane. And who to bench from the other 3? It would be Mahrez. Nonto or Mahrez? I mean, for this week, I would rather have Nonto, but long term it's Mahrez. Look, Mahrez is the one I'd rather start anyway in most weeks, and you know what? I'm going to stick with Mahrez. I'm going to say start Mahrez, even this week. Bueno or Dunk? Dunk this week, for sure. Mitro to Tony or Nketiah? Nketiah. Tony has a great fixture now, but then blanks in 25. I'd rather go to Nketiah. Bench Saka or White? I would bench White from those. I'm looking to transfer out KDB. Who do I bring in? Already have 3 United players. I would keep KDB, mate, because he doubles in 23. If anything, you could do a sideways switch, so to speak, to Mahrez, or go to an Arsenal midfielder. But apart from that, I don't think it's worth getting rid of Kevin De Bruyne. On a wild card, worth doing war to Meslier. Already have Strauch. On a wild card, fair enough. I can see why you're thinking that. No blank in 25 either. But honestly, I think Kepa's a better option long term. Pope as well, despite the blank. And I don't see too many clean sheets for Leeds United, so I wouldn't do it, mate. I honestly wouldn't, even on a wild card. Hi, Dylan. Would you start Mitrovic or Sam Greenwood? I think Mitrovic, because I'm not sure if... Well, I don't think Greenwood will start anyway. So, yeah. Kane to Nketiah and Almiron to Fernandes for a -4. I would do Almiron to Fernandes for free, then maybe get Nketiah next week, but I wouldn't get rid of Harry Kane, for a -4. I don't think it's worth it. Start Mount or Mitrovic? I did say Havertz over Mitrovic earlier when I was asked about that, but with Mount, I'm just not so sure with him. I'd probably go for Mitrovic here. Are Mahrez and KDB almost differentials this week? I'd say so. I think a lot of people are benching them or selling in the case of De Bruyne. Yeah, thank you, Rock and Roll. I appreciate it. Activated my triple captain. Good luck to you. Hopefully it pays off. Bestie says, bench 1, White, Botman or Almiron. I would bench Almiron, oddly enough. It can backfire, though. Hola, Esteban. ¿Sacarías a Cancelo, Almirón y Mahrez por Odegaard, Bruno Fernandes y Ake -8? Mi única duda es sacar Mahrez por un -8. Lo demás, sacar a Cancelo y Almiron está bien, a pesar de que Almiron juega con Bournemouth en la jornada 23. Odegaard, Bruno Fernandes y Ake son transferencias muy buenas, pero Mahrez es alguien que yo recomiendo para la jornada 23, así que no sé de eso, pero sí, vale la pena sacar el -8, pero si puedes mantener a Mahrez y sacar a otro jugador en vez de él. Hi Dylan, Shaw or De Gea for Bruno? I have 2 free transfers. Oh, Shaw, De Gea for Bruno. Well, I'd keep Shaw and sell De Gea if that's what you're asking. Odegaard to Almiron -4. Well, I like Odegaard. I think it's worth a -4. I've discussed this many times in this stream already, but you can just hold off and bring Odegaard next week. It just really depends. Do you think Odegaard hauls in Game Week 22 against Everton? He scored in both games last season against them, so if you are confident, then go for it. But otherwise, I would just say hold it for 23. White bench to Robertson, I would start White. Pope or Meslier this game week? Probably Pope. Saka or Odegaard? I prefer Odegaard. I've taken a -4 hit. Should I take a -8 to switch Stones as I'm triple captaining Rashford all next week? If you've already got an 11, I will just keep Stones for now and get rid of him next week. KDB to Fernandes and Almiron to Mahrez for a -4. I will do KDB to Fernandes and that's it, and bring Mahrez next week for Almiron. Don't do it this week. Think it's worth triple captaining Rashford? Yes, that's why I'm going for it myself. Let me just show you now, and that could also help you with some of your questions. Like Botman versus White, for example, which some people are asking. You can see based on what I'm doing right here. Although I have to say, that's probably the most conflicted I am about any decision this week. Let me show you, actually, I want to show you something. Let me show you my community tab where I put several polls out, and these will be some very common questions asked right now. And by the way, since we still have, I think, let me check right now, over 100 people watching. We have reached over 100 likes, so thank you very much. But if you haven't given the like button already, haven't given it a like, then be sure to do so. And also subscribe to the channel. Check the links in the description below for the Patreon, the channel membership, so you can click the join button and become a channel member for as cheap as £3 a month. And you can get early access to videos and access to all my team reveals. And thank you to everyone who sent in super chats. Let me just bring up this one right now, and then we'll go to the polls that I've got. So thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. Let me just get your question up here. Bench Strauch or Mahrez? Honestly, I would actually bench Strauch. It does sound crazy, but I don't see Leeds keeping a clean sheet against Nottingham Forest or Man United. So I would bench him and start Riyad Mahrez. But you might feel differently. You might feel a clean sheet's on the cards against Nottingham Forest. If that's the case, he's not a bad player to start, but I would honestly rather go for Mahrez this week. So thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. Let me now go into the community tab on my YouTube channel, and you can see what I've got on screen. So let's change it to here. All right, so one poll that I put out earlier is White versus Botman. 64% of you have gone for Ben White, and that's what I'm currently thinking. But I have to say I'm very conflicted about that. I also put this in terms of your approach to the triple captaincy. If you haven't used it already, 68% of you are going to be putting the triple captaincy on Rashford this week. 7% of you going for Fernandes. 10% of you going for Haaland next week in Double Gameweek 23, and 15% of you saving it for later in the season. Then the other question is who's going to be your Double Gameweek 22 captain. No surprise with the result, although I thought it might have been a bit less comprehensive. 84% of you going for Rashford. He's going to be just absolutely incredible with his effective ownership. It's going to be maybe over 200% potentially, although it's also a lot of Twitter noise. Remember, his ownership is still around 50%. It's not like 80% with Haaland or Jesus early in the season. So yeah, that is everything we have. And then, yeah, I put my transfer plans earlier just to give you an indication of my final transfer plans before I confirmed my final moves. But yeah, those are some polls. If you have any ideas for polls as well, then be sure to put it in the live chat as well. But yeah, let's go through your questions. Again, we have gone through quite a lot of these. We're going to get some repeats, but I am happy to go through them provided there is no spamming. Pope over Kepa this week? Yes. Start Odegaard or Mahrez this week? I'd go for Odegaard. FPL BMR says bench 1, March, Kane, Odegaard or Tony. I would bench March. Abhinav says Saka and Fernandes for KDB and Ericsson. Yes, I would do that. White or Botman? I'm going for White right now, but I'm very, very conflicted. Originally, I was going for Botman. When to confirm transfers? Well, definitely don't leave it for the last 10 minutes because the site could crash. You just never know. I think there will be a lot of activity and also people putting the triple captaincy and stuff. So I would try to sort out your transfers within the next 10 minutes, basically, if you can. KDB, Almiron to Saka and Bruno. Yes. And also consider Odegaard if you wish. Ben White or Perisic? Ben White this week. KDB, Almiron and Mitrovic. Which free players to bring in have 2 free transfers? It would be Odegaard or Saka for Almiron. You could also consider Mahrez, but I'd go for an Arsenal midfielder. For KDB, I would go for Bruno Fernandes. I would do those 2 free transfers there, Roy. Zena, I'm guessing that's Zinchenko or Gabriel. Zinchenko right now. Thoughts on Almiron to Mudryk if he's in the League 11? Look, I think Mudryk's an exciting player and he could be an exciting FPL prospect, but the reason why I'd say no, and I don't want to be boring, is because we have so many other midfielders, including Mitoma, the Arsenal midfielders, the Man City midfielders like Mahrez, not to mention Bruno Fernandes and Rashford. Otherwise, yeah, after that, I'd probably put Mudryk in terms of the players I'm keeping an eye on to bring into my midfield. Let me just see how far behind I am in the chat. Okay, so let me try to whiz through this and catch up to the chat. Arafin says bench 2. Trippier, Share, Shaw, White, Dunk. I wouldn't bench Trippier at all in any circumstance, so I would bench Share and Ben White. I have to play 2 out of White, Botman and Nunez. I would play White and Botman. Start March or Share? I'd go for Solly March. Best Cancelo replacement, I have Trippier. I would go for either an Arsenal or Man City defender, assuming you have a triple up in United already and you have Luke Shaw. So Zinchenko, Ake or White, take your pick. Gabriel and Saliba are fine as well. I think any of those will do the job for you. Bench 2, Trippier, Share, Shaw, White, Dunk. Oh yeah, I think we just went through this. We went through this. So try not to repeat the question, please. Start Mitro or Botman? I'd go for Botman. Start 2, Nonto, Mahrez or Odegaard? Probably Odegaard and maybe Nonto. I'd back Nonto a little bit more than Struijk in the kind of recent example we had earlier. Almiron, Kane to Bruno Nketiah or KDB Mitro to Bruno Nketiah? Good question. I'd rather do Almiron, Kane to Bruno and Nketiah. Do you think I should sell Ake to keep Kepa to Edison? No. I wouldn't do that, honestly. I think Kepa's a better option than Edison anyway, and Ake you would want for Game Week 23 and 25. And by the way, to the other question by Michael, because I think maybe considering the blank game week or the double game week in 23 for City, it might make more sense to, get rid of Almiron and Kane. I think I might have said that already, but just to make sure that I give you the right answer, I think that's what I would do. Bench 1, Kane, Nketiah, Martinelli, Mahrez. I would bench Mahrez from those lot. Would you start Mitro ahead of Botman or White or leave Mitro on the bench? I think I'd bench him. Thank you, Arafin, and that's good to see. Hopefully we are on the right track and we make the right call there. Adil says choose one option. Almiron and Martial to Bruno Nonto for free, or Almiron, Martinelli and Martial to Bruno, Mitoma and Nketiah for -4. I would do the -4 option, Adil. I think I would do that. Which transfers have you done? What I said in the team selection. So Odegaard and Bruno Fernandes in for Almiron and Kevin De Bruyne. Who do you think is the best City defender? Right now, it would be Ake, closely followed by Akanji. Start 1, Mitro, Andreas and James. It would be Mitrovic from those 3. Will Lewis start? It could be Walker up against Heung-min Son, going for a more defensive-minded right-back. In the grand scheme of things, I think Lewis might be the preferred right-back, so to speak, but I have a feeling Walker will start against Spurs. KDB, Almiron, Andreas to Bruno, Mitoma, Odegaard. Yeah, looks completely fine to me, mate. I like it. Honestly, I have no issues with that whatsoever. Bench 1, I think we said this already, but just to recap, I'd bench Solly March. No lineup leaks or news at the moment, as far as I'm aware. I will check Twitter, though, because I haven't been able to so far. If you do see anything, then be sure to let me know. Put a link in the live chat. That would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, I haven't seen anything. Also, Mudryk, like I said, he's someone I'm keeping an eye on. Very exciting player. But with so many midfielders at our disposal, with double game weeks in the next few, I'm not going to go for him just yet. I'm probably going to consider him or maybe buy him in a few weeks' time. Dalot to White, De Bruyne to Fernandes -4. Yeah, I would do that. And yes, I would bench Mount. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's very simple. I'd bench Mount, start Kane, Martial, and do the transfers you said, Harry King. Best Man United defender apart from Shaw, I'd say Lisandro Martinez. Have KDB, Almiron, and Mitrovic. Which three players to bring in? We covered that already, Roy. We covered it already. So, like I said, I do KDB to Bruno Fernandes, and I do Almiron to an Arsenal midfielder like Odegaard or Saka. On a wild card, who would you bring in? Badiashile or James? Probably James, but only when he starts getting some consecutive minutes. And he's such an FPL troll, so I'm very, very apprehensive, and I don't back Chelsea defensively, even after their summer or their January transfer window, on top of their summer spending. Nketiah or Nonto? Nketiah. Start Botman or Mitrovic? I would go for Botman. I start Saliba. Can I start White or Ferguson? I'd probably go for Ferguson. Tony or Kane to the bench? Probably Kane. Thank you, Suryanch. Like I said, I think the other day, someone was saying, "Oh, you look." I'm not sure what the exact words were, but "Oh, you look better without the beard." And I just kind of laughed. To be fair, I kind of laughed. Estupinian or Bueno? Estupinian, seguro. Nunez and Almiron to Fernandes and Ferguson from -4. Yes. No. Sorry, no. I don't know what I'm saying. I would not go for Fernandes in FPL. Honestly, I like him as a player, but I'm not so sure if he'll get the goals and assists really. I think he'll start today, but not enough for me to take a -4 for that. I like Ferguson, but he does blank in 25 anyway. I'd rather do other transfers, Daniel. Almiron start, Martinelli bench. I'd start Martinelli personally. Son or, let's see what else we have. Son or Watkins to bench one. I'd bench Watkins. Bench one of White, Mings and White. I'm guessing it's White or Mings. Maybe there's someone else involved, but I would bench Mings and start White. Best Cancelo replacement, I'd go for an Arsenal Man City defender, assuming you don't have, or you already have a triple up in Man United. So Ake or Sinchenko could be the call for you. Sell Martial for Bruno from -4? Yes, I would. Should I sell Martinelli to get Odegaard for the double game week? Do you think Martinelli will start both games? It's tough to tell. I think Martinelli is the most at risk of dropping down to the bench for Trossard. But bear in mind, Trossard can play on the right and also up front for Nketiah. But I think Trossard will mainly play on the left for Arsenal. So yes, I think he is at risk of maybe being benched in one of the next 3 games. So I can see why you're doing that. And Odegaard is a worthwhile transfer, especially for free. De Bruyne to Fernandes, Rodrigo to March, Mitoma from -4. Yes, and I would go for Mitoma. Just bear in mind, Game Week 25, Brighton will blank, which means they won't have a fixture in Game Week 25. I think Botman, he's the cheapest. He also has the best points per 90, so I'd go for Botman. Bonus points is the simple answer, and we discussed this in recent videos as well. Very close though. Bench one of White, Mings, and Botman. It would be Mings. I'd bench him. Whom to bench, Almiron or Kane? I'd bench Almiron. Start Kane and bench Haaland or Mahrez? I would bench Mahrez. Or start both City players and bench Kane. I'd bench Mahrez despite his incredible form. Mitrovic to Nketiah or Almiron to Salah? I would not do Salah. I would not game in. Honestly, there's many better midfielders right now at this moment in time. I'd rather do Mitro to Nketiah. We are going through this quickly, but the chat is just absolutely... it's so fast-paced, so yeah. It's going to be difficult for me to get back in. Did Martial plus Salah to Bruno plus Nketiah for free? Good move? Yes. Or do I take a -4 for Almiron to Odegaard this week? Just stick with that. Get Odegaard next week. Badiashile and Sanchez or Ward and Silva? Ward and Silva, I think. Brighton also blank in 25 and could blank in 28. Start Ben White with Trippier, Shaw and Botman, or start Mitrovic over one of them. Just start those and bench Mitrovic, yeah. I think that's the right call. Varane and KDB out of the team for 25 and Bruno in. Then Game Week 23, KDB back in, and Arsenal player for Almiron from -4. Yeah, I think that looks really, really good. And having 10 and 25 is really good as well. I think that's a really solid plan. Ake or Botman? Botman this week. Who's a long-term Almiron replacement? I would say an Arsenal midfielder like Odegaard, Saka, or even Riyad Mahrez. I think those are the 3 you really want to look at. Zaha to Odegaard to a -4 or start Aurier? I would do Zaha to Odegaard for a -4. Isn't it better to do Martial plus Almiron out for free because Matoma blanks in Game Week 25, whereas Nonto has a game? Yes, I mean, look, this is the thing. It's a team-dependent question, but when I look at it, I think Matoma in the next 3 could outscore Nonto. And not only that, I would rather have Matoma beyond Game Week 25. There is the possibility of a double Game Week for Brighton in 26 or 27, albeit they could have a blank in 28 as well. But in the long term, I'd rather have Matoma, even with a blank in 25, and you can still get 9 or 10 players out, or even 11 in Game Week 25. Nunez and Almiron to Fernandes and Ferguson. Says Daniel. Yeah, to be fair, that does look much better. Okay, fair enough. I thought, because yeah, Fernandes is the Argentine spelling of it. So yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I would do the -4. I think that completely changes the answer, of course. Martinelli or Matoma? This week Matoma. Yeah. Start White or Mbumo? White. And thank you, Rock and Roll. I appreciate the advice. Thanks for the sponsors. Last question. Who do you think is the most nailed on City defender? I think Ake, closely followed by Akanji. Thank you, Twisted Parky. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you. Bruno in today and KDB out and Mahrez in next game week and Bruno out. I've literally done the exact same thing and I might bring in Mahrez next week. So I like the idea. You could also reconsider and bring in KDB again, but I really like that plan. Bueno, Estupinian or Dunk? Estupinian for sure. Raya or Kepa in goal? I would go for Kepa. I think I would. It's a really close call, though. Here we go, says Wei Seng. Yeah, try to lock in your teams. Try to lock them in. I do have a Man City play in Haaland, and I'm looking to bring in Mahrez or Kevin De Bruyne next week, and maybe Ake in Game Week 25. Almiron to Odegaard or Mitro to Nketiah? Almiron to Odegaard is the way to go, I think. At the moment, yes, Adil. I think he is. Up until the end of the season, I don't think so. But for now, for the next 5 or 6, I think so. Cher or Botman? Botman for me. He's better for points per 90 and he's cheaper. Welcome, Lager. Good to see you. No worries. It's good to see you tuning in. Bench 1. Haaland, Kane, Nketiah, Saka, Odegaard or Mitoma? Probably one of Nketiah or Saka. And I'm not so sure which one. Maybe Nketiah, but I'm not so sure about that. When you look at the fixture, you probably would say bench Harry Kane, but I couldn't bring myself to do that. Odegaard or Nketiah? Odegaard. And the best Man City defender? Ake. Adil says, start Nketiah or Mitoma this week. I'd start Mitoma. Isaac says, Tomiyasu, White or Wan-Bissaka? Well, for this week it's Wan-Bissaka, but long-term, Ben White is my favourite. Bench 1, Ake or Cucurella? I would rather bench Ake and start Cucurella this week, but not many times I'm going to say that in this season. Plan KDB to Bruno, Andres to Odegaard. White or Gabriel to Ake? I would rather get rid of Gabriel, but honestly, there is kind of pros and cons behind that. Gabriel is going to get the 90 every single game. White won't, but that can play in your favour at times. But I do prefer White. He's also cheaper, although that doesn't really matter too much nowadays with the amount of value we have in the game. I would start Martinelli still, I think. Mitoma or Almiron? Mitoma. Ashwin says, hi Dylan, should I get Mitrovic and De Bruyne out for Nketiah and Fernandes instead of getting Kane and Almiron out in order to get Mahrez in next week? Yes, 100% I would do that. I mean, if you asked me earlier in the week, I would have said yes, it's fairly likely. Now look, Newcastle are still one of the most likely to keep a clean sheet, but I think the chances have gone down with West Ham's form, Jared Bowen also getting into some goal-scoring form. You've got Bruno Guimaraes being suspended for 3 games. So yes, it is likely, but not as likely now with everything taken into account. Start White or -4 for Nonto? Start White. Rico Lewis, what is he starting? If that's the case, that'd be interesting. But of course, the game we have today is Chelsea-Fulham, so I would be surprised if we got any City news. Maybe you didn't even mean that. Mudryk in for Almiron, I do like it, but unfortunately, there's like 5 or 6 midfielders I prefer over Mudryk at this moment in time. Leon Bailey or Gakpo to start? Probably probably Bailey, based on the fixture. Yeah, I'd go for Bailey. Nketiah or Odegaard? Odegaard. Have a feeling Haaland is going to punish us all Or the one time a lot of people go against captaining him. I mean, he just scored a hat-trick, so he can go easy here. Maybe Spurs can finally get a result. The only time I would kind of condone a Spurs result. And yeah, he can save his returns for Game Week 23. Yeah, look, obviously with Haaland, he can always haul. There's always going to be that risk, but I still think Rashford will outscore him. Martial, Martinelli to Bruno, Nonto from -4. If that's your only way to afford Bruno, then yes, I would do it. But I do prefer other forwards over Nonto. Are you watching the game later? I think I will. Yeah, I think so. Andreas or Bueno? Andreas. Is Martial likely to play? I think he might get one cheeky start, but I don't see him starting both. I think Weghorst is more likely to start both than Martial. Dalot to White, De Bruyne to Fernandes -4. If so, who would you bench? We covered this already, mate, Harry. Like I said, I would bench Mount, and I think the transfers are fine. Bench 2 between White, Botman, or Estupiñán. I would bench Botman and Ben White. Yeah, I'd start Estupiñán. Who to replace Martial with a -4 in Nketiah. Is it worth next week taking out White for Mings and Saka in for Almiron? No, because White has a double game week in 23 and Arsenal have a better defence than Aston Villa. If you really want Saka and that's the only way to do it, then fair enough. But honestly, why not keep White and then bring in Mahrez in for Almiron? You already probably have Martinelli and Nketiah anyway, so if you really want a Saka Odegaard, maybe take a hit next week for one of those two in for Martinelli. Any team news? As far as I'm aware, no, but I could be wrong. Bench Tony, Mitoma, Martinelli, or Kane? I would probably bench Martinelli, but I'm very apprehensive about that. Varane, Martinez, or Bissaka? I think for Game Week 22, look, Wan-Bissaka I think has the best bonus points potential. Having said that, Dalot, if he comes back into the squad and whatnot, he could then maybe pick a start, or get a start, should I say. I think Martinez is the safest one, so I'd go for him. Harrison or Sinisterra? Probably Harrison, because Sinisterra's been out for quite some time. Do you think Martial's a better goal scorer than Weghorst? Yes. The problem is he's so injury prone that you just never really get to see that. Che Adams or Ben Mee? Ben Mee. Is Mount worth a differential or any other Chelsea attacker? I think Mudryk is the Chelsea attacker I'm most excited about. No one else. Start Botman or Trent? Botman. Start Botman, Estupiñán or Mahrez? I'd start Estupiñán. Chelsea finally looks not finished. Joke. Finally good on the signing after last summer. I mean, look, I have to admit, some of the signings are really exciting, but it doesn't mean they're going to pan out, and it might take some time for them to really gel together. Might even take a new manager as well, although I think Graham Potter does deserve some time. But I mean, it's not sustainable, this amount of spending, I think, and if FFP finally get their act together, we could see some repercussions, but I think Chelsea will go over it anyway. Start Mitrovic or Botman? Botman. Just did KDB to Bruno and Martial to Nketiah from -4. Yeah, to be honest, I think that's a worthwhile transfer. No worries. Yeah, -4, so be it. You're in a good position now for Game Week 22. I would go for Pope this week. White or Estupiñán or me? Estupiñán, for sure. Wilson or Mitrovic? This week, Wilson. Bench Tony, Kane, Martinelli or Mitoma? I would bench Martinelli. Yeah, I think so. Is it worth the extra 0.3 million for Zinchenko instead of White? At the moment, I'd say yes. But my main concern with Zinchenko is his injury record. Mahrez, Odegaard or Saka Capitan? I read it as Capitan. Next game week, I'd say it's between... Close one. Well, that's a really close one. That's why earlier I did say in Game Week 23 I would favour Mahrez out of the three, but in the long term Odegaard and Saka might be the best options. Struijk or Ream? Struijk this week. Start Mitrovic or Botman? I'd start Botman. Bench who for Mitoma? Kane, Saka, Fernandes? If you had to bench one, it'd be Harry Kane for sure. Don't bench Enzo Fernandes, yes. Don't bench Bruno Fernandes for Mitoma. Odegaard in for Almiron? Yes, I would do that. But you could also hold that for Game Week 23. Sancho in, Martinelli out? No. I wouldn't do that. Why no Mitoma? Because he blanks in 25 and I've got other midfielders I want to get, like Odegaard, who I got in, Bruno Fernandes, not to mention Mahrez, who I've got my eye on, Bukayo Saka as well. Mitrovic or Botman? Or Botman or White? Botman. We've covered this quite a lot of times already. Or Botman or White? White is my current preference. Start White or Mahrez? I'd go for Ben White. I think Mahrez has the highest ceiling, but Ben White is more likely to return. Mitoma in for Pereira or Tony in for Mitrovic? it'd be Mitoma in for Pereira. Bear in mind that both Mitoma and Tony will blank in Gameweek 25. Debut for Fulham. Yeah, for Enzo Fernandes, that would not surprise me at all. Odegaard in for Almiron. Did Salah to Fernandes. Yeah, we just went through that as well. Chelsea summoning a 600 million squad for the Conference League. I backed them to win it. Fair enough. I mean, I think they could maybe get a sneaky Europa League spot. I don't see them getting top 4 though, over Man United, Man City, Arsenal, or Newcastle. I have Martial. Should I sell him for Nonto to free up a spot for Bruno, or keep Martial? Yes, I would do that. I think Bruno's worth that, even for a hit. Should I bench Mitoma or Nketiah for Somerville? No, I'd start Nketiah and Mitoma. Pep or Sanchez in Gameweek 22? Sanchez. Bench White or Thiago Silva? I'd bench Thiago Silva. I think so. I made my transfers, I think, overnight. Everything is pretty much locked in. Start White or Botman? I have Mahrez as well. I would start White, but very reluctantly. It's a really close call for me. Yeah, Strauch would be my answer over Ream. Mitrovic to Nonto from -4? No, I wouldn't do that. Odegaard in for Almiron or Mitrovic to Nketiah? Like I said, it would be Odegaard in for Almiron. Yeah. Mitoma or Odegaard this week, Dylan? Odegaard has a great record against Everton, but I'd say Mitoma. Yeah, no, that's fair enough, Wasting. And obviously, as a Chelsea fan, I would be optimistic. Gracias, Dylan. Mucha suerte hoy. Igualmente para vos, Esteban. Mucho placer hablar con vos también. Pope or Kepa? Pope. Hey Dylan, just got here. I'm doing Kane to Nketiah, Almiron to Bruno, Mitrovic to Nonto from -4 Thoughts, doing Andreas to Mahrez in Gameweek 23 and switching to a 3-5-2. I really like that plan. Despite getting rid of Kane, which is my only doubt, the rest looks really solid. Martial, keep or sell? I'd say sell. If he's blocking a Bruno Fernandes, I'd definitely sell. If you can get to Nketiah, Haaland or Harry Kane for free, I probably would sell him. I'm doing homework and listening to your stream. Thank you very much, mate. Good luck with your homework. That's a very weird combination, but I do appreciate that. Sometimes, it does help you concentrate, oddly enough. Long time I've known you for Odegaard. Oh, thank you, Abraham. Good to see you. Odegaard is a must, but would you keep Martinelli or get Saka? Not so sure if Odegaard is a must because you've also got Martinelli, let alone Saka and Nketiah, but I would get Saka in for Martinelli if you can. If you've got a spare free transfer waiting there, then I would do it. I wouldn't mind keeping Martinelli though. My only concern with him is that he's got Trossard knocking on the door. I think he's the most likely to drop out. Botman, Zinchenko, Saka, Odegaard, Tony, Kane, Mitoma, bench too. I would bench Botman and Zinchenko. Will Cancelo's price fall? That's a good question. So I think we covered this before. I think his price is locked. Yeah, he's locked. In FPL statistics, he's at 0%. So yeah, he's just locked in. He won't go down in price anymore. Even if, transfer activities, obviously everyone's going to sell him. Which Man United attacking asset to go for apart from Rashford and Bruno? Oddly enough, maybe a Casemiro Anthony would be the one, but I'm not really that convinced, if I'm being completely honest there. Mudryk, thoughts? Exciting player. I'm keeping my eye on him, but there are 5 or 6 midfielders I'm looking to go for first before. Why is your captain on Haaland? You scared me for a second, mate. Jesus. My captaincy is on Rashford. Don't worry about that. Yeah, the triple captaincy is on Rashford. I have Martial. Should I sell him for Nonto to free up a spot for Bruno or keep Martial? Yeah, like I said earlier, Dida, I would do that. I'd sell Martial and get Bruno Fernandes. Yeah, I mean, I think if that is true, a big reason why is because Arsenal are doing so well this season. But that could easily change in the upcoming season with Chelsea spending so much. You've got Man City and Liverpool. There's always competition. Man United are looking really competitive. But yeah, I think Arsenal need that depth in midfield. They definitely do. If Jacques is injured, right now Jorginho could maybe go in there, but Jorginho is mainly an understudy or competition for Partey. So, yeah, Arsenal need a midfielder or two. He could be a good signing. I'll be honest, I've never been a big fan of Rice. I don't think he's worth that money, but then again, the market is inflated. Start Robertson, Ake or Malacia? It would be Robertson because I don't see Malacia starting. Start Dunk or White? Dunk. Almiron to Odegaard for -4? Yes, or just save it for next week and do it for free. Why bench Botman? I've discussed this many times before. It's not an easy question or an easy answer, really. You know, one reason why I'm less keen on Newcastle defence right now is because Bruno Guimaraes is suspended. So I think that does decrease the chance of a clean sheet. West Ham have been a thorn in Newcastle's side over the last few years, and West Ham are in great form recently, or at least showing some better form. Should I go for Nonto differential? I just get the third Arsenal player. Davis plus Cancelo. Yeah, something to keep an eye on for UCL Fantasy, but facing PSG, not so sure about that just yet, even with no Mbappe in the first leg. Would you keep him? Yes, unless you want to get Bruno Fernandes in and he's blocking a spot. Bench Botman, White or Almiron? I'd bench Almiron. Mitoma or Mahrez for Almiron, or keep? I'd rather go for Mahrez because despite Mitoma being better in 22, Mahrez has the double in 23 and a fixture in 25. So yeah, Mahrez. Cucurella or Mitrovic for this week? Mitrovic. Fernandes for Mount or Martinelli? For Mount. I'd keep Martinelli. Is it bad to captain De Gea? I don't like captaining goalkeepers. I just go for an attacker, personally. Should I change Martial to Weghorst for a -4? No. I honestly don't like Weghorst anyway. And it could be Martial starting one game and Weghorst starting the other. I wouldn't do that. Start Botman and White along with Trippier and Shaw, or replace Botman and White for Mitrovic in the starting 11. No, just start Botman and White, I think, yeah. I think that's fine. Don't you think that Everton could do well? Yeah, that is my concern, and that's why I originally went for Botman anyway. It's a really close call. One other reason that has kind of swayed me towards White is Arsenal's away record, where they keep the majority of their clean sheets. I'd go for Stupinian this week. Elijah. Who would you bench, White, Cher, or me, says Justin. I would bench Ben Mee. I really like to see who will take part in Chelsea from now on. I'll take penalties. Yep. That's a good question. Could be Havertz, maybe. Don't think Enzo Fernandes will. Remember his penalty in the World Cup against Holland? That's absolutely awful. I hate that run-up. When he did that run-up, I knew he was going to miss. Why no Botman? We covered this many times before, so sorry, but I'm not going to go through that again. Bench Martial, Darwin Nunez. I would bench Darwin Nunez. Start Cucurella, Mitrovic. Once again, I'd start Mitrovic. Bench Kane and Nketiah, Odegaard. I'd bench Nketiah. I'm keen to make Rashford triple captain, but I don't know. I understand. Rashford traditionally isn't a great FPL option, but this season he's been very consistent, and since the World Cup, he's been absolutely fantastic. Reece James starts, thoughts? Very, very promising, but not enough for me to go for him. He's far too much of an injury-prone player, and Chelsea are poor defensively, so I could see his minutes being managed for now. What was the actual playstyle of Enzo? He plays as a 6-8 and does a 10's job as well. I see him more as a number 8, a box-to-box midfielder. You know, he's good from long-distance shots. You know, he's had some really, really good attempts on effort for Argentina in the World Cup, for example. I think he hit the post in the World Cup final, also against Holland. So yeah, I see him more as a number 8, but he can play as a number 6 if needed, which is what he did in the World Cup. He was really, really good for River Plate in that number 8 role and for Benfica in the Champions League, so that's what I mainly see him as. Botman or Mitrovic? Botman. So Amram for Bruno? Yes. White or Ben Mee? White. Weghorst is not there to score. Yeah, I agree. He can score in this double game, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't do that. I would bench Ben Mee and start Almiron, Lama. Is it worth to get Fernandes plus Rashford for KDB and Almiron for a -4 hit? Yes, it is. Yeah, Reece James starts apparently. I'm going to try check this very quickly. Ardash, we already have a UCL Fantasy video up. So in November, I did a first draft video after the Champions League draw was made. And literally, I think yesterday, I uploaded the latest draft. So if you check the channel, you've already got a UCL Fantasy video there. And we will have a team selection fairly soon, and also the deadline stream on the day, on I think the 14th of February, when the Champions League returns officially. Cucurella or Botman? Botman. Havertz or Sterling? At the moment, I'd say Havertz. Yeah, 2 minutes to go, and now 1 minute. Mitrovic or White? Ben White. Enzo Fernandes starts. Yeah, I'm not surprised about that. Like I said earlier in the stream, Argentine journalists who are very reliable said if the papers go through, he will start against Fulham, and the papers have gone through. So that does not surprise me at all. Let me try get this up on screen. For some reason I can't get... Let me see if I can get this up. Oi. Yeah, so we've literally got 27 seconds left before the deadline. But yeah, I'm trying to see if I can... Let me check my lists. Maybe I can get it there. Oh, God, this is annoying. All right, so yeah, we're pretty much locked in. We've answered all the questions we've needed to. But yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to all of you throughout. Let me get this up. I think he is the one who's reporting it. So let's check this screen here. So his Twitter page. Reece James starts according to Sam C345, who tends to have inside information and it's very reliable. And Enzo Fernandes starts, which isn't really that appealing or interesting from an FPL perspective, but just something to think about and not really too surprising in my opinion. I'm actually more surprised about the Reece James news, oddly enough. So yeah, let's see what else. Alba not in the squad, apparently, according to Felix Johnston as well. Wow, Chelsea's trying to force Aubameyang out of the club. And of course, he was left out of the Champions League squad too. It's kind of sad to see what's happened to Aubameyang. Obviously, I didn't want him to do well at Chelsea, but it would have been good to see him stay at Barcelona where he was doing really well. But yeah, this is the big news that we've got. Reece James is starting. So yeah, let's go for your last few questions and comments as well. Best 4.9 million defender, get Bueno and Botman. Apart from Estupinian, who does blank in 25, I would say Ben White is a really good choice for you, or even Zinchenko, I think. KDB Almiron to Bruno Martinelli for -4. I think you said this earlier. Yes, it's fine, but like I said, Odegaard or Saka is better than Martinelli right now, in my opinion. So what position will you play Enzo if you're the manager? As a right centre midfielder, basically, RCM, or left centre mid, basically. A central midfielder. I wouldn't play as a holding midfielder, although if needed, he could play in that role. But yeah, as a central midfielder, basically. Bench Mitrovic or Darwin Nunez? I would bench Mitrovic, I think, from those two. Who's the current box-to-box in your opinion in the Argentina squad? If you're asking about that, it would be the Paul. If you're asking, and also McAllister, to be fair. If you're asking about Chelsea, yeah, I think Enzo is just going to be that. Thanks, Dylan, for the show update. No worries, mate. Let me know what you think of that video. Thank you, Lama, and everyone else watching. ¿Cuándo esperas activar el comodín, Dylan? Bueno, yo ya activé el comodín de Triple Captain, así que ya está. Best leads forward, I'd say Bamford and Nonto. Nonto is probably my preference because of his price. Too late for triple now, will have to be next week, says Twitter Parky. Fair enough. Good luck to you, and good luck to Rock and Roll. Fulham are over tonight. Wow, look at the confidence all of a sudden. Enzo's better left centre mid. Yeah, he has played there for Benfica, that is true. With Argentina, I think if he didn't play as a defensive midfielder, I mean, he's not going to displace the Paul, to be fair. Yeah, I think left centre mid or right centre mid is pretty good for him. Either way, he could play it in either side. Bench Martial Nunez. I would have benched Nunez. Of course, we have locked in, and the big news is Reece James and Enzo Fernandes will start tonight in the West London derby against Fulham. Kepa, Trippier, White, Shaw, Salah, Matoma, Rashford, Bruno, Odegaard, Haaland, Tony, triple captain on Rashford, and Nketiah bench, says Adil. Looks really good. I'm a bit apprehensive about benching Nketiah, but I do agree with your decision. You can't bench one of those defenders, unfortunately, so I think I would have done the same thing in your situation. Best box-to-box in the world now? Oh, that's a good question. Wow. Xhaka. Wow, that's a good question. Who's the best box-to-box midfielder? I mean, normally I would say Bernardo Silva, but right now I can't say it because he's not even starting games. There's someone I'm surely missing. Probably Luka Modric, I'd say. Yeah, Luka Modric. Mitoma or Martinelli? Mitoma this week. Great stream. Thank you very much, Abhishek. I appreciate that. I didn't only remember to do my transfer just then. Panicked and then Wilson to Nketiah and rolled the other. Yeah, I think that's an okay move. Doubles in 23, got the fixture in 25, and Wilson's injury prone anyway. Although he should start now with Isak being a doubt, and I think he's injured and ruled out for Game Week 22. So yeah, that looks completely fine. The difference between the Chelsea squad in the game versus Fulham and the loss to Fulham is crazy. Yeah, I mean, a few 100 million will do that for you, to be fair. Botman 15 points incoming. Oh, if that happens, I'm going to cry, honestly, because I had him for most of the week, and I think over the last day or so, I changed it. One last punt on Nunez. Yeah, good luck. I hope it pays off for you. He has the capabilities. He's got the underlying numbers, gets into some great positions. You just need the positioning now. Yeah, Bellingham's another shout. That is a shout. I'd say Modric, though, still. In terms of price, yeah, I think he's overrated. But then again, the transfer market is completely screwed for some time now. Before that price or before that transfer, I don't think he was overrated. I think he was maybe under the radar before the World Cup. Obviously, with that Young Player of the World tournament and winning the World Cup, the expectations change, the hype changes, but I think he was fairly rated maybe after the World Cup, and now I want to say he's overrated all of a sudden, but definitely an overinflated price. Ends a red card. Honestly, I'd love that. I'd love that. Yeah, Bellingham, I'm seeing quite a few shots for him. Thank you, Dushyant. Thank you very much. Thanks, had a busy day, but going to enjoy the Chelsea one, or the Chelsea match, should I say. Good luck all. Thank you, Harry, and I'll see you very soon. I bought Mudryk, and at last minute, I benched him and put Tony. Hope it pays off, and I think Mudryk is a very exciting player, probably my favourite Chelsea asset going forwards, and I will be keeping an eye on him. The Neymar to PSG transfer ruined the price of players. I mean, yeah, but not just that. Coutinho for 140 million to Barcelona, Griezmann, you know, Pogba 90 million, Lukaku 90 million twice. There's so many examples, and Neymar, he had the ability, like, he's not worth 220 million, let's be clear, but I would understand that more than some of the other kind of examples I've given. What are your thoughts on Jorginho move? I think I discussed it very briefly in the reaction stream. Like, I think it is a smart signing. Like, I'm not a big fan of Jorginho. I think he could maybe suit Arsenal more than he did at Chelsea. But he did certainly play a big part in Chelsea winning Champions League, in Italy winning the Euros. He's got experience, and I think he can bring a lot on the pitch as well as off the pitch, help slow games down, maybe sometimes come in for Partey, maybe even this weekend. Partey's still a doubt going into the game against Everton. Jorginho could come in, and there won't be a huge difference potentially. And he could also play in the Europa League, give Partey a rest, and it's competition for places. And also, he's come in with El Neni being ruled out for the rest of the season, and I think Jorginho is technically an upgrade on him as well. So I think he's a smart signing. Caicedo, he's an exciting young player. I do like him, but Brighton were just being unreasonable, I think, asking for ridiculous sums for him. So in this case, I think Arsenal did the right thing. Wait, is Joao Felix back? No, I think he's back in Game Week 23, if I'm not mistaken. I think the red card was 3 games rather than 2 because it was deemed as dangerous play. Coutinho and Griezmann were after Neymar, though. Yeah, they were, but I think those transfers were worse. And then you look at Maguire, 80 million, another example. Also Anthony, 90 million. Why putting Mudryk ahead of Felix as the best Chelsea asset? Look, it's difficult for me to judge. You know, both of them have played next to nothing for Chelsea so far. Felix was looking good before his red card. Mudryk had a really good debut off the bench. I don't know. I just have a better feeling with Mudryk as a midfielder than Felix. That's just the way I look at it. And also, look, I think those are the 2 options I'm going to look at for Chelsea in the weeks to come or in the months to come. But even then, I'm still very apprehensive and sceptical about Chelsea assets. Let me be completely clear there. But those 2 would be at the top of the agenda. Do you think Pedri is actually that good? I think he is good. Look, some people are comparing him to Xavi and Iniesta. That's just way too far. But he is a serious talent, yeah. Thank you, Anders, and good luck to you as well. Nice team you got there. My captain is Bruno. Good luck, everyone. Hope for a good score as always. Likewise, and I hope Bruno does really well too. Caicedo is a centre mid, but he can play as a defensive midfielder too. Chelsea on right track, just wait and watch. Yo, I mean, with the amount of money they spend, you would expect them to, but there's no guarantee. Money is not a recipe for success. You've seen with United over the last 10 years as well, even with PSG and City in Europe. So let's wait and see. I realised I could make my transfers easier. Took out Amram for Fernandes and Varane for Struijk. Now don't have to take out KDB and bring him back. That's fair enough, and I hope that plan works out for you. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of Struijk or Leeds assets, but that is still a good transfer. Any value in delaying my triple captain from Rashford today? There could be. I've just gone for it now. I don't see too many better opportunities in the future. And for example, in Game Week 29, 34 and 37, there's going to be different reasons why I think the triple captain might not be as beneficial then. You might want to use the second wildcard, the free hit, or the free hit. Did I say free hit already? Or the bench boost. And also, in Game Week 37, for example, that's literally the penultimate game week of the season. And you might have some rotation with Europe, with the FA Cup as well in mind. So I think I'd rather deal in the certainties and go for Rashford right now. But you will have some good opportunities later in the season. Game Week 23 on a Man City or Arsenal player like Haaland, and also in one of those big double game weeks, like I said before. And there will also be some smaller double game weeks too. I remember when Liverpool bought Van Dijk for 75 million and United fans laughed at that. True. To be fair though, over the last year, I have to say I think Van Dijk's been pretty poor. Now, in general, he's been a great signing, played a big part in Liverpool winning the Champions League and Premier League, but over the last year, I'd say Matip has been a far better defender for Liverpool. Thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate it very much, and it's always good to talk to you. What's the purpose of Chelsea playing at their best in the Premier League? Well, I think the purpose of that is to build rhythm, to give Potter confidence in an 11, to then build that form for the Champions League. I think it's really important actually to do well in the Premier League. If Chelsea are sitting in 10th still and struggling in the league, it's going to be difficult to then just kind of click everything into gear and do really well in the Champions League. So I think it's actually important. Thank you, Astravadan. Good luck as well to you. Luke Shaw's an overlooked captain, but that's only if he's playing left back in both games. To be fair, though, as a left centre back, he did get a lot of bonus points. That's the thing. So I still think he's a good option regardless. Of course, the attacking threat is there when he's a left back rather than left centre back. So I do understand what you're saying. Would you make a Tony out to Joao Felix? Potentially, but probably afterwards. I'm actually willing to keep Tony all the way up until game week 30, but I'll see how things pan out. Well, look, even before Chelsea, who for me were like the first club to kind of bring the oil clubs into the equation, money was already taken over. You know, football has been kind of dictated by money for a long time. Let's not, kid ourselves. It's a business, first and foremost. But obviously for us who enjoy football, whatever, it's a passion, it's a hobby, whatever, for some people as well, even involved in the game. But yeah, it does ruin football, I think, especially when you see some average players sometimes going for some ridiculous sums. Sack Ten Hag, sign Diego Simeone. I completely disagree. And you're trolling because of the Piers Morgan Ronaldo link there. Do you think Arsenal will go for Caicedo again in the summer? Apparently, we are going to go for him. I've seen some reports indicate that. Doesn't mean it's going to be certainty, though. And I think Rice is the main target in the summer. Arsenal could then turn their attention elsewhere, especially if Brighton are still asking for some mega sums of money. And there are also going to be other targets in other areas too. But yes, I think Arsenal will keep an eye on him. I don't think Brighton were unreasonable about Moises Saga. We do not want to sell. Look, when I say unreasonable, I mean in terms of the transfer fee they were asking for. For example, I think 70 million is a really good sum for Caicedo, a player who's got more international caps than Premier League appearances. From a Brighton perspective, I do understand what you're saying. If I was a Brighton fan, why do we need to sell Brighton? Why do we need to sell Caicedo to Arsenal right now with only days left and not much time for a replacement? I understand both sides of the story. I just think that the price that they were probably looking for, it was too unreasonable. I think 70 million was already more than enough for him, but obviously it is understandable from Brighton's perspective. I did Salah to Mahrez. Yep, I think that's a good move. Maybe the timing's a bit off, but ultimately he will pay off those points, I think. I prefer Nketiah for the next 5 because Tony blanks in 25. We already went through this, like I said. Yes, Newcastle have the best defence in the league at the moment, but they also have no Bruno Guimaraes for the next 3 games. He's suspended, and West Ham have been in more form, and Arsenal have a really good defensive record away from home. Best Arsenal defender, I'd say Zinchenko right now. Yeah, I think Everton away could be tough, to be fair. I think they could get managerial bounce instantly with Sean Dyche. We hope for a Tony Brace, yes, definitely. And for some people, it could be a farewell for him from our FPL squads. Bench, Ward, Martinelli, Andreas Bueno, and that's a solid squad as well. Bit unsure about Gaeta and Robertson, but the rest looks really, really good. I do like that Ward-Prowse pick, actually. That could be pretty decent. Ansu Fati is a long-term replacement of Jadon Sancho. I don't see that happening, mate. Yeah. The away record at Everton isn't good. That is true. That is true. And as someone else said earlier, it's not out of the realms of possibility that White is dropped for Tomiyasu, who played well against United off the bench and also against City in the Cup. Time for the world to get the Juventus player. Oh yeah, it's just a matter of who do you get. I think Chiesa would be a very popular pick. I think Liverpool and Arsenal are the only ones who are among the top clubs without spending insane amounts of money. To be fair, in recent years, Arsenal have spent quite a lot, but it's also not unreasonable when you look at the last 10 years or so. So I do get what you're saying. I think you are right, but Arsenal have spent quite a bit. And Liverpool and Spurs, so to speak, from the top 6, they've just not spent much at all, especially Spurs. Dylan, I panicked and transferred James in for Botman for a -4. Fair enough. I wouldn't have done that personally, but good luck to you. Let's see how it goes. I think McAllister's the type to maybe stay for another year. Like, he could leave in the summer, but at the same time, I think Brighton only sell if they get a big offer, and I don't see McAllister really forcing Brighton to leave. I think he would maybe give them another year. I would love him at Arsenal, I'll be real. I would actually rather have him than Caicedo. I think Arsenal can win the league. Is it a certainty or something? No, of course not. I still think City are the favourites, if that's what you're asking, but can Arsenal win it? Of course. Game week 23, would you buy Mahrez over KDB? At the moment, yes. That is my current thinking. Would you rather go with Mitrovic or Tony for the next few game weeks? Probably Mitrovic because he doesn't face Arsenal in 23 and he also doesn't blank in 25. Yeah, exactly. Bruno Guimaraes was red carded in the Carabao Cup. That's why that's one of the reasons why I've decided to go against Botman and go for Ben White. Well, it's gonna put a few doubts in Arsenal's mind, put more pressure on them. But yeah, if Arsenal can get wins in the next two, and Spurs, for example, drop points to Spurs, and sorry, if City drop points to Spurs, then yeah, then it can go the other way. I think City just have far more experience in these kind of situations, in title races, and I think that could get them over the line, and also the squad depth. Yeah, I've been pretty happy with that since the World Cup, going up from 1.3 million into the top 200k, so pretty happy with that. Can't ask for too much more. I'd go for Zinchenko right now, like I said earlier. I haven't been on UCL Fantasy, but saw a notification the other day about getting plus 4 million. We get 5 million extra, I believe. I think we get 5 million extra. I understand, I clearly explained, but price was to put Arsenal off. Yeah, obviously, like I said, it's understandable. And look, if I was Brighton, I would have done the exact same thing. It's just from an Arsenal perspective, sorry, you wouldn't really, what would it have taken? 80 million, 100 million? It just wasn't worth it. Well, in my opinion, yes, but, I don't want to trigger Chelsea fans or anything. I know, obviously, you see the funny side. KDB or Mahrez? Right now, it has to be Mahrez. Do you think we'll get Bellingham in the summer, Liverpool? Potentially, I think so. I don't see Liverpool, because I saw some people saying, for example, Liverpool getting Bellingham and Enzo, and I said, that's never going to happen. Liverpool aren't spending that much on two players. Maybe Bellingham, get one, but that's about it, And Liverpool still need one or two more midfielders on top of Bellingham. That's the funny thing. I hope Liverpool having a quiet January window and spending low is to go all out for Bellingham in the summer. It has to be though, right? And I saw a stat where Liverpool haven't signed a midfielder for 4 or 5 years. That's just ridiculous. Just leaving that position untouched. It's just asking for trouble. I think so, over Xhaka, or competing with Xhaka for a spot. And either way, I welcome competition for places at Arsenal. I love McAllister, love Argentina. Please don't leave. Yeah, look. Like I said, I think he will stay at Brighton beyond the summer. But yeah, I just would love him at Arsenal. I've seen him at Argentina. I'll be honest, around March, I saw him come in for Lo Celso I think it was a World Cup qualifier against Ecuador, and he was decent, but I still wasn't that convinced about him. And when Lo Celso got injured, I was fearing the worst. I thought that would be a huge blow, and it was. But McAllister, the way he played in the World Cup was incredible. In the World Cup final, the assist for the Di Maria goal, the way he played in that game, yeah, he's a hero there now. Bruno was red carded not in the Prem, so why is he suspended for the Prem? Because the way it works is a red card in the domestic cup competitions or in the Premier League, it carries over in all the other competitions as well. The yellow cards is different. That is competition specific, but red cards will translate into the Premier League and also the Carabao Cup and FA Cup. City form is not consistent this season, yeah. And for quite some time, I think a lot of us would have said if Arsenal played City now, they would win. Of course, we had a game recently, but I have to say that game actually gave me more confidence as an Arsenal fan, because typically City absolutely demolish Arsenal at the Etihad, but this time round there was a really close game, could have gone either way. Arsenal had chances, and I think City were quite underwhelming there, and they played a really, really strong team compared to Arsenal, who had quite a lot of B-team players, so to speak. Chelsea's a joke man team. I agree, but look, they could also, with this joke man approach or whatever, they could start to do really well. You do a better job than Paul Merson, great player, but not brains of Britain. He does make some good points sometimes, but yeah, sometimes he's just completely off it, and that just sums up punditry in general. Thiago was signed in 2020. Yeah, so I think he's the only midfielder signed in the last 4 years. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Maybe I'm missing someone. Obviously, Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott coming through the academy and stuff, but yeah, for example, Wijnaldum, not the greatest player, but perfectly fitted Klopp system. He still hasn't been replaced in such a long time. Well, because Arsenal have a double in 23, great long-term fixtures, potentially no blanks for a very long time or until the end of the season. So there's quite a lot of reasons why. And also Eddie Nketiah, yes, he's pretty nailed on for the next 6 or 7 game weeks, arguably, but after that, it might be different. Bellingham to Madrid for sure. That's another possibility, to be fair. I see him at Madrid or Liverpool. I know there's been links to City, but I'm not so sure about that. Apart from Arsenal, all other Premier League teams are having inconsistent form all season. Yeah, you say that though, but City are only 5 points behind. That's the thing. They're only 5 points behind. Yes, there's a game in hand and all that, but City literally 1 or 2 wins away from being right on Arsenal's tail. We still haven't signed a Wijnaldum replacement yet. Yeah, exactly that. I think the plan is Bellingham and then 30-40 million midfielders in Amrabat. That's possible. And obviously Amrabat was so close to going to Barcelona in January. Didn't happen as well. Thank you, Paolo. I appreciate the comment very, very much. Always a pleasure to talk to you. I guess in a way it's better that Bruno is suspended in the league so he'll be able to play in the final at Wembley. And also a huge advantage for Newcastle is that they only have 3 games, I believe, before the Carabao Cup final, whilst United have 7. And they also have the Barcelona Europa League game only 3 days before the Carabao Cup final. Clean sheet teams are Newcastle and United, maybe Chelsea. Well, United also have, I think, the same amount of clean sheets as Arsenal over the course of the season. And they've had a really good run of form recently, which is something else to bear in mind. Chelsea, no, I disagree there. Obviously, they could become a completely different team now with the signings, but I think Arsenal have a better defence than them. Did KDB to Bruno, switch back to KDB or get Mahrez? Right now, I'd say Mahrez, but just wait for the Spurs game over the weekend and then you can reassess. Yeah, Fabinho has been finished for quite some time. He's another one that needs replacing, or at least someone to give him a kick up the backside, basically, and give him some competition. Not a Chelsea fan, but why say Chelsea is an oil club? The owner isn't even known for oil industry. The reason why is because Roman Abramovich, who was known for oil, is, he was the one who kind of gave this major influx of cash, to Chelsea and made them what they are today. So that's why they're called an oil club. Either way, I think that also plays a part in how Chelsea are perceived nowadays with the American owner. For example, City and PSG do get a lot of negative press because they have Arab owners, for example, and then you have an American owner in Todd Bowley, and I think the media, the way it's kind of shaped around is really, really dependent on that as one example. But obviously that's just going into other territories, but I do think that does play a part. Hopefully Trent and Henderson did their jobs in England due with Bellingham. I mean, you look at that celebration against Senegal, I think that was more than enough. That was very, very weird. If Madrid's still our main transfer target for the second time in a row in the summer, I'll be so fuming. Yeah, if I was a Liverpool fan, I'd hate Madrid anyway with the Champions League, all those finals as well. Liverpool need a new owner? Well, yes, and I think they do want to put them up for sale as well. What are your transfer plans onward for Game Week 25? We covered this already. And obviously I will be wrapping up now because we have been going on for quite some time. But obviously it's good to talk to all of you. But yeah, my transfer plans is to potentially get Mahrez or De Bruyne in 23, roll the transfer in 24, and then maybe get a C defender, and then maybe Pedro Porro in 25. So those are my kind of transfer plans. We discussed this in the team selection video. So just to kind of give you a recap, that's how I'm looking like right now. Game Week 23, get Mahrez in for Bruno Fernandes maybe. Game Week 24, roll. Game Week 25, I could then bring in Ake for Luke Shaw, and then maybe get rid of Cucurella, Ivan Toney, or someone else like, who's the other defender? Botman or Pedro Porro. So something like this could be on the cards, and no hits will be involved, which makes it more appealing, you could say. It's just that Arsenal defenders don't really keep too many clean sheets. At home, Arsenal don't really keep too many clean sheets, that is true, but away from home, a really, really good defensive record. My last hope is Gerrard. If we don't get Bellingham, he'll return to the Prem and still do better than our midfield. Not so sure about that, but I can understand your sentiment there. Sometimes we say the same thing about Arteta. There were rumours Eddie Nketiah Arsenal to Brighton a few months ago. I remember that, yeah. With Nketiah, though, he doesn't do really well off the bench. You have to start him really for him to make a real impact, of course, and the same can be said for most strikers, but he's not someone you really want to have on the bench. So that's why I think Arsenal, or there was rumours of him being linked away to Brighton and stuff, but now he's had another run in the team again, and there you go, he's done really well. Yeah, I can see what you mean, but since the World Cup, very, very solid. I think the fixtures have played a big part. When they've played Arsenal and City, of course, they've considered in those games, and of course, those are the two best teams in the country, but will Man United be able to keep clean sheets to Tottenham, to also Chelsea, for example? I know they've kept clean sheets before, but will they be able to do this going forwards as well? I'm not so sure. Like I said before, it's not something I'm really that bothered about. So it's important to have 9 or 10 players in blank Game Week 25, get most of the key assets. But would I be going out my way to get an 11 out? Not really. Yeah, the lineup is out in 6 minutes. I might still be here by then, but we'll be wrapping up very, very shortly, within the next 10 minutes or so. You think Nketiah is okay to play big against big teams? Well, yes, he scored a brace against United recently, a brace against Chelsea last season. He did miss a big chance against City, and I think sometimes in a game of few opportunities, you do need your striker to take chances. Having said that, Nketiah is a better finisher than Jesus, but Jesus offers so much more in other areas. But yeah, I think he can do all right in those big games. Is Perraud and Almiron to Odegaard and White, or maybe Mings from -4 good for Game Week 23? Yes, and I would go for Ben White or another Arsenal defender personally. Cannot stand Chelsea now, dislike them more than Palace. Yeah, fair enough. That's saying something as a Brighton fan. I think I will. I've seen something like there's different games going on, so Play On have kind of separated from the F1 official game. I don't know what's going on there, but just waiting for it to launch, and then I'll reassess. I think one of them has launched actually, the Play On one. Best game week to use the wild card. I can't give you a specific game week. I don't know your team, but between game week 28 and 33 looks really good. We've got double game weeks in 29, 34, and 37. Major double game weeks. We've also got blanks in 28 and 32. So I would say between 28 and 33 looks really good. Reece James Hall incoming, then everyone will get him, and then he'll get injured next game week. Looks pretty accurate. Or he doesn't get Hall, gets a 0-1 pointer. So yeah, F1 Fantasy so trash. I think there's some good things about it. I did enjoy it last season. I had a good rank as well and stuff, but I think there are some things that put casuals off. For example, in terms of captaincy, you have to captain someone that doesn't cost more than 20 million. So it, there's some things that are very restrictive, and there's a lot of micromanagement and stuff like that, and that does put people off, and I can understand that. Do you think taking out Cancelo for James is a good option, or would you rather go for a cheaper choice? I'd rather go for a cheaper choice. I don't think James is bad, mate. I think that's a good shout with the fixtures as well for Chelsea. But honestly, I'd rather go for a cheaper option. Ake, Zinchenko, Botman. Obviously, I know he's got a blank in 25, but just another one to mention. Estupinian, another one to mention there. Pedro Porro, I really like the look of. Do you think Saka will lose penalties to Jorginho? It's possible, but I have a feeling he won't. And either way, Jorginho won't always be on the pitch at the same time as Saka when they're taking penalties. Do you think Spurs, Liverpool, Chelsea, etc. will be back to looking like a team next season? It depends on the summer transfer business as well, especially in the case of Spurs and Liverpool. I think they'll still be decent teams, capable of big wins against top 6 opposition, maybe even challenge for a domestic cup or whatever. I'm not so sure though. Look, things change very quickly. Arsenal last season didn't look anywhere near a Premier League title. Now they're leading the way by some distance. Liverpool are looking like they could do a quadruple last season. Now they're out of pretty much every competition. So things change so quickly. Of course, they can become a good team next season, but a lot depends on the transfer window and also the managerial situation. I think City are still favourites for me, but Arsenal are the second most likely to win, in my opinion. For most people, they would be the favourites. They're leading by 5 points, but Liverpool were in a similar position a few years back. City still won the league, so yeah, I'd still back them to win it. I hope that Arsenal can do it, but yeah, I'm still very wary about City. Mitoma for Mount this week, what's your thought? Honestly, I would have done Mitoma in for Mount in Game Week 23, not in Game Week 24. I think if you were to get rid of Mount now, it would be for an Arsenal player or a Man City player like Mahrez. Do you think winning Europa for Arsenal is easier? Honestly, I would rather go for the Premier League. It's a bigger trophy. Arsenal have a lot of pedigree and history in the Premier League compared to the Europa League, and they're in a really strong position. So yes, ideally I'd want to go for both, but if I had to prioritise one, it'd be the Premier League. Your UCL and Europa League predictions? With Europa, I think one of Arsenal, Barcelona, Man United will win it. I think they're the 3 best teams. Of course, it tends to be just someone completely random, like a Sevilla coming in and winning it. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case again. In Champions League, I think my favourites would be Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and Napoli. I think those are the kind of best teams right now. The fact that Reece James is called binary on the Fantasy FPL subreddit is honestly jokes, really. I mean, that is a good way of summing him up, to be fair. Yeah, I saw the Red Bull and Ford partnership. It's very interesting. I'll be reading a little bit more into it afterwards. That is certainly interesting. Gusto thoughts? I mean, at this point, I don't know too much about him, and there's so many Chelsea players that they've signed. I've lost track of them. I'm like, what? He's a Chelsea player? That's the way I'm going about it. But yeah, don't know too much about him, actually. That's a good question when Jorginho and Saka are both on the pitch. I mean, Jorginho is the historical penalty taker in general for club and country, but I'd still say Saka. I think he has credit in the bank. He's, scored quite a lot of penalties for Arsenal. Is Jota ready for next game week? Not so sure about that. My defenders at the minute are Botman, Trippier, Schär, Moreno, and Cancelo, so I'm not sure who to take out Cancelo for. I'd go for an Arsenal defender or City defender. I think that's very simple for you. So Ake or Zinchenko looks good. Don't care who wins as long as it's not Chelsea. Wow, the Chelsea hate is real. And also, I could see what you mean because they've taken a lot of your coaching staff. They've also taken maybe some scouts or something, if I'm not mistaken, as well as Cucurella. They were linked to Caicedo too. So yeah, I do agree with that. I can see why. The Big Six should be back. The thing is, though, we're saying people always say this about Big Six, and there's always one or two teams that kind of are pretty poor. You know, last year it was Arsenal and Man United in particular. You know, there's always like one or two teams that let you down. It's never like 6 teams competing for the title. That's always a myth. But I do see what you mean. I had to use my free hit in Game Week 8. I have what is it? P10, and I'm now P3 in my football group. Free hit will be super important in the coming weeks. Yeah, good luck to you. I do like your plans, and yeah, an early free hit. Very, very bold, but you never know. Sometimes it does pay off. I'm looking to use the free hit in a blank or double later in the season, probably in a major double or blank. So it will be between Game Week 28 and 34 probably. I had 2 free transfers, did Almiron to Bruno, Cancelo to Zinchenko. Looks really solid. Game Week 23 plan, Salah to KDB or Grealish. I'd go to KDB personally. And Bruno to Saka or Odegaard. I mean, that is really close. I don't have a real preference there, although I went for Odegaard. But yeah, I think that's a W, and I would go for KDB over Grealish. Badiashile is good, yes. I haven't seen too much of him, but he's obviously really highly rated. Well, I hope we can win versus Madrid anyways. You can, but I think Madrid will win once again. But let's wait and see. It's just in recent years, Madrid seem to be in the form of Liverpool's side, the only team that can seem to displace them in the competition. Just transferred in Cancelo in Fantasy Bundesliga. Now, that's a simple move, definitely. Not much to think about there. You'd think he'd be fairly nailed on as well. Let me just show you something very quickly. So we'll show you the lineups very, very soon. Go over them quickly before wrapping up the stream. It's been going on for quite some time now, almost 3 hours. Damn, 3 hours. Doesn't feel like it, but yeah. Wow, let's look at the Chelsea lineup. All right, so this is the Chelsea lineup. I'll also be going through the Fulham one as well. I'm just going to get that on screen too. So, starting off with Chelsea, we've got Kepa in goal. Reece James also comes back from his quite lengthy injury spell. Thiago Silva, Badiashile, Cucurella, Gallagher, Enzo Fernandes makes his debut after his record signing, record move from Benfica. Mason Mount, Ziyech, Havertz and Mudryk also starting. So first starts for Mudryk and Enzo Fernandes. Reece James coming back from a lengthy spell. Badiashile also coming into the side. So all of a sudden, it's a much stronger team there from Chelsea. And I can see why some people are really interested in their FPL assets. The main ones for me are Mudryk, and once he comes back from suspension, Joao Felix. And look at Ziyech there. Should have been at Paris Saint-Germain, but there you go. Maybe Chelsea are being a bit cheeky there. Let's go through the Fulham lineup very quickly. As you can see there, the cover boy Willian facing his old club. Leno, Tete, Diop, Ream, Robinson, Paulinho, Reed, Andres Pereira, De Cordova-Reid, Mitrovic, and Willian. So a decent team from Fulham. Should be a good game. Chelsea would probably have the edge, though, in terms of the favourites after their transfer activities. Like I said, a just completely different side now. All of a sudden, it does look like it has a bit of quality about it. Chelsea even took the pie lady. TB is not good for our game. Total brat. Fair enough. Brighton going to slip from the table soon. Not so sure about that. I still think they can keep it going. I triple captain Salah Game Week 1. I mean, in the years gone by, that's been a really good strategy. He tends to start the season really strongly, but yeah, Salah this season, not really the same. I can't remember what he did in Game Week 1 now, actually, now that I think about it. Probably, he was my captain, wasn't he? Yeah. Thank you, Dylan. It's too late in Asia. Good luck for everyone. See you next week. Good to see you as your fan, and it's been a pleasure talking to you as well. Yeah, it's a solid lineup, Mudryk. It's a solid lineup, Weiseng, I have to admit. When will be the perfect time to triple captain? I've already used it in Game Week 22. So if you haven't used it yet, I'd say Game Week 23 on Haaland. If not, a smaller double game week later in the season could also suffice, because in one of these big double game weeks, you might want to use a free hit, wildcard, or bench boost. I would rather play Havertz as a 10 and play Fofana as 9. Well, his best position is as a 10, so that does make sense. Did you see the news about Partey? I did see the news. Now, look, it is a kind of sensitive subject, and I'm not going to take Partey's side, so to speak, just because I'm an Arsenal fan. But my kind of thinking of it is innocent until proven guilty, and I haven't seen concrete proof. I know I've seen some people talk about emails and stuff, which kind of convicts Partey. I haven't seen it. Then you see the Snapchat messages. I'm just not so sure about that one, to be honest. But once, if the police find him guilty, then do what's necessary, never play for Arsenal again and stuff. But it's a really kind of delicate subject to really enter. And I don't know all the information, so I could be misinformed. But I do find it very strange that some people do judge without knowing all the facts. That's the way I look at it. With Greenwood, for example, you do have audio evidence and stuff like that. And, once you get something like that with Partey, something, conclusive, then of course I will be against him. Ziyech starts after his move to PSG, clapped 3 times. Exactly. Good to see Chilwell back as well. Yes, someone to maybe consider in the future, but just like Reece James, very injury-prone player. Mudryk looked very good. I'm kind of sad we missed out on him. I think he could have done really well at Arsenal. Really exciting player, very quick and great on the ball. But then again, everything happens for a reason. And Arsenal, then looking at the bright side, could have more to spend in the summer. Kepa's aged 10 years under Pot in that pick. Yeah, I mean, maybe with all the results, maybe it's not too much of a surprise. But I think Chelsea will start to get on a little run now. Also, sorry in the Ziyech drama. Yeah, it's completely unnecessary as well. Yeah, I agree. One thing you can say is that the Fulham team has great chemistry. Yeah, that is true. And look, the Chelsea team looks much better now, but it's going to gel and it might take some time for that, which we discussed earlier too. Oh, I'd love it. I'll be honest, I would love it if Willian scores again, but I'm not so sure about that this time. Zinchenko, Tarkovsky or Gabriel Bueno? Zinchenko is the best option from the lot right now, in my opinion. When to use free hit? I'd probably use it between Game Week 28 and 34 in either a blank or double game week, depending on if you want to be aggressive or a bit conservative, so to speak. Yeah, in terms of the Partey thing, I was mainly referring to the stuff going on in behind the scenes. He is an injury doubt. Arteta did say that he is still a doubt. That is true. And look, I'm not so sure because I think that press conference was embargoed. So that information might have been quite some, it might have been quite old. And we're getting the information now. I don't think he was spotted in training, but I'm not so sure, if anything has changed since then. It'll be either Partey or Jorginho starting there. That could have an impact on Arsenal's chances in terms of keeping a clean sheet and all of that. Let's wait and see. But Partey will still be a big blow, even with Jorginho coming in. Yep, let's see how he plays tonight. Best Game Week 2's free hit, we covered that. Chelsea win 4-0, I hope not. It's a better lineup. I think it'll be a closer game than that, but I do see Chelsea winning it. Thank you, Adil. Always a pleasure talking to you. Good luck to you. Have a great weekend, and same to everyone else watching. If you haven't already, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get this video to over 300 likes, or maybe be a bit more realistic, more than 200 likes. And let's also get to 18,000 subscribers. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and you can also become a patron or a channel member. Patreon.com/RCM. You can become a patron for as little as £3 per month. The same goes for becoming a channel member. And check the links for the Discord server and the FPL League. It's been a pleasure talking to you for now what seems like 2 hours 50 minutes. So it's been a lengthy stream. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 22. Enjoy the football, and let's see how Triple Captain Rashford goes. It should be a very good one. My record with Triple Captains isn't very good, just to let you know, but I'm hoping for a change this time round. I'll see you very soon.